Hello, hello, blah, blah, yada, yada. We're back. We're back. And this time we are doing the after show. The microphones can come on. We only invited two people to this after show, esteemed guests. One is host emeritus Mac Attack, and the other is one of the Bryans. Who knows which one? I've never seen them both in the same place at the same time. So who knows even if there is two Bryants? I don't know. I'm just going to leave that out there. So you two should not wait on an invitation. You are here. You are invited here specifically for this. So I just recommend you turn your mics on and say things when you want to, because in after shows, and if listeners, you're not familiar with after shows, this is after after a very difficult show. I guess it goes back to my time in theater. After a show, the cast and crew would get together and we'd go out, and dine or drink or whatever. I don't drink, but we in college it would be Denny's. We go to Denny's. And we celebrate, football teams. They go out and they celebrate, win or lose. They go out together, things like that, and blow off some steam for the thing that just happened. So after shows are steam blowing events. There's no moderation, and people who are normally good, sane people go a little nuts in after shows. Deal with it. So I imagine there's a lot of pent up conversation that needs to happen. If there's some yelling, screaming, personal ad hominem, more power to you, brother. If you can't take it, you shouldn't be in an after show. So,
Well, we don't have Darren, so I don't think like Mac and Darren will be going back and forth this time.
yeah, look, Mac is more than enough. It's more than enough. You just did a show with this guy. Come on. You know who Mac is. How you doing, Mac?
Wait, I didn't. It wasn't a bad show with Phil.
I haven't
Um,
finished it yet. I just assume that there's some kind of blow up that's going to happen.
nah, no blowouts happened. The
Okay.
thing with Darren is that he never lets a person finish talking. He was always interrupting, so it's always going to happen that he's just not a good communicator in general. So
Mhm.
nothing can be done about that,
Okay.
as far as I know.
I don't mind
Maybe he's a
homonyms.
good communicator with you, but
Yeah,
at least not with
let's
other
try not
people.
to throw stones at the people who aren't here to defend themselves.
Well, I'm sure he can defend himself, but
Also, don't throw stones at a person with as much computer knowledge as Darren because he can ultimately fuck you up. So have a little common sense, man.
I'm not really worried about that. I'm just saying the reason that there's no way for communication to happen between us is because interrupting, even
Mhm.
on the forums, like he'll interrupt and then he'll leave it. He'll
So
leave the
let's
conversation.
let's have an actual after show. I'm just going to set a topic that we touched on briefly, and
Well, first, let's
whether we actually talk about it or not, I just want to say that a thing that I would like to talk about that I didn't talk about that is technically a part of my thesis is divine determinism, and not just determinism, but determinism. Period. Because I don't think that there can be any altruism
just
with determinism.
before we get into anything specific, do you mind if we just get? I'd be interested in hearing the general thoughts of Mac and Brian on the
Oh
debate.
yeah, look, I was just setting a top. I always have a topic that I set for after shows. They seldom stay with that topic, so I mean, it's more of an ideal. That's the topic, but there's no moderation in an after show. So let's. I too would like to know what the two of you had to say, that, especially that we didn't say, think something that we missed and should have talked about.
Well, I think I missed the first hour or so, but what I got was, I think pretty
You
much
only missed
what.
30 minutes at most.
Oh, all right.
Hmm.
Well, in that case, I think I pretty much kind of like reaffirmed what I already believed you knew. So like I did learn some new things, but overall it was pretty much stuff that I already knew you believed.
Okay.
But it was a good show. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the show. I wasn't quite sure where all the disagreements were. It's not like there was too many issues where Dale felt something was immoral and David felt it was moral, or and so on. I like the concept of where you talk about moral reasoning and trying to look at how and why you get to the moral beliefs that you have. So, good show.
Okay. You see, this is why I wanted to bring up determinism, because there will be no agreement there, and we can blow off some steam. This is not steam blowing. This is not what after shows are for. Fuck you guys. I want an after show, damn it. I've got some math that I haven't burned off.
So,
Uh,
is it true that both Mac Attack and David Johnson are determinists?
Yeah.
That's it.
I think
There is
everyone.
there is an
I think
agreement
sorry.
there.
I think everyone's a determinist. It's just the question is to what degree do you believe uh determinists like influence your actions? So if you're an atheist, you believe that okay, biology and nature determines in a way like during the show there's a lot of talk about neurons and my biology and my programming as how I am, and obviously everyone believes in a way that they are who they are, but also there's also another level of how much responsibility a person has. So that's kind of where the disagreement happens. It's to what degree are you a free creature or a free being to do what you want to do versus how much are you like biologically driven to do? Like are you totally free from your biological constraints or your spiritual constraints, or are you completely free to do whatever you want? So I don't know if that helps, Brian.
so let me say something that's incendiary. I don't care about culpability. In the grand sense of things. For instance, if my dog um, eats my couch, and I knew that my dogs would eat my couch when I got the couch and when I got the dogs, because dogs eat couches, especially puppies. You leave them where they can do it, they're going to do it. So it's not that I am blaming my dogs for a ruined couch, but if they distribute, if they um, do that behavior, and I can't come up with a better way to stop them, I'm going to confine them. I don't care about their culpability. I don't care whether they are blameworthy. I don't care if they did it maliciously. Doesn't matter. What matters is if you want a shred of furniture in your house that's any good, you're going to do something about your dogs. And I feel the same way about humans largely. I don't care why the murderer murdered. I mean, I do in a kind of academic way, but what I care about is having a society where people can be free of murderers murdering. And so if we can't find a good way to deal with it, and we don't really have a good way to deal with it, then we're going to go with confinement or worse. So it's not a matter of whether I think they're culpable or not. It's a matter of whether they are a loose cannon wrecking through a society. That's the only thing that matters to me.
But if you don't know why a don't know or don't care why a murderer murders, how are you going to make changes? You still
Well,
want to
and
you
so
still want to change things so that they don't murder.
I expressed that a little bit too vehemently. So I do care in the sense that you're talking about why they're doing it so that we can come up with solutions. I'm just saying that if we can't find solutions, it's I don't care about punishment. Um, I guess that's what I really should say. I'm not trying to punish murderers. I would think that most of them are probably criminally insane. They have IQs below 80. What can you do with a person like that? You can be mad at him all you want. It's like being mad at the lion for eating your son. it's not about that at some point, at some level. And so, yeah, you try to fix it with the best information and technologies we have right now, the best research, the best studies. But at the end of the day, what you don't do with a lion that's running loose in your society is let them run loose.
Well, when it comes to human beings, when you say motives don't matter, I find that hard to believe because in courtrooms every day, people are questioned for their motives. So it's not like if someone gets murdered, it's an open and shut case. So it's like, okay, they murdered someone. Like, we have to find out the motives behind that because that also plays a part in determining their their morality and also determining how, in a way, as a society, we can stop murders from happening.
Yeah, I don't
So
care about the
it's not
morality.
merely,
I don't care
yeah,
about the
right,
morality.
but you said you don't
I care about them stop. I care about stopping them from doing that sort of thing. If you can do that by just convincing them that they were wrong, and you can get some kind of real change of heart, fine. You don't have to put them in prison. If you can know that, well, this murder happened, but it was because of a one-time special event, like, for instance, a woman murders her husband because he beats her every day. I don't think she should spend a single moment in jail for that.
but then it does matter, the
She's not
motive.
a date. Right. The motive matters, but so I was speaking grandly overall.
Okay.
Okay. So if we can look at that situation and say, well, she's not likely to go around killing people, but she killed this one person who needed killing. Um, okay. She did it. Guilty, time served, even though she hasn't served any time, and we're done. We can walk out of that case because society doesn't have a problem right now. There's no punishment that is required, and I ultimately think punishment is the bane of any kind of societal justice, any kind of societal cure. Punishment doesn't cure anything. Punishment is revenge, and I don't need to get revenge on people with an IQ of 80. You can't get a
Wait,
revenge
so
on those people.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, if someone does something to you, let's say someone robs your house and takes
Yes.
everything, as I understand it, you're saying that person should not be punished because that's revenge.
I'm not saying that exactly, but I'm not sure that I'm not saying it either.
Um,
Right. I
I'm
mean,
not sure what that means. Yeah.
I'm an emotional creature. All right. If I'm walking down the streets of New York and someone tries to take my iPhone out of my hand or out of my pocket, my phone is a lifeline to me. It's way more than a piece of technology. I would fight them to the death. I'd kill them and sleep well that night. Um,
Mm,
and then I would probably spend the rest of my
what?
life in jail. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
would.
would. Yeah.
I absolutely would, because I think that that person is a much greater danger to society. That's the kind of person who would wreck through the lives of as many people as they can, uh, without remorse.
For stealing?
I would be doing society and also myself a favor by making sure that that person is not a part of society. That's not punishment, by the way. Although
That's that
it is,
is punishment.
it is,
You're
no, it's
punishing
not.
them. You're
No,
punishing them for trying to steal your property.
the death penalty is not punishment. Well, it doesn't have to be punishment. The the death penalty, the only reason I support it is because we don't have better ways of containing people who are criminally dangerous, and that cannot be contained any other way. And I actually think the death penalty is better in many cases than caging people for life, and they just become animals, more animals than they are. There are things worse than death. So,
Yeah.
again, I'm speaking out of my limitations. If we had better solutions, I would be in favor of those solutions.
Yeah, but my question was, like, someone robs your house and they later get arrested. Are you saying that then let's say they're arrested and put in jail for a few days. Are you saying that's punishment? That punishment is not the right thing to do?
No, I don't think that it's punishment at all that is necessary. They're in jail. I'm going to forget about them at some point. What we need to do is rehabilitate. Now, if that person who robbed my house can is just free to go and rob other people's houses and destroy their lives, because I don't know if you've ever been the victim of a robbery.
I
Uh,
have, yeah.
yeah, so I have too. It's not pretty. It'll fuck you up. And it's a much bigger crime against humanity than I think most people realize or think about. And so that person is just an example of someone who should not have the freedom to be walking around in society.
Yeah, David,
It's not
that's where
punishment.
I'm confused, because you say you're against the death penalty and you're against putting people in jail, but then you
Yes,
say that that person should not be allowed to be part of society.
I absolutely agree
So
with that, and I don't
how,
mind any
how,
conflict that
how
comes from it.
it's a conflict. Okay, I'm
It's not.
just wondering.
It might be. I don't think that on the face of it, it is, because in one instance you're talking about punishing someone because you're mad at them, and in another thing you're talking about protecting society because you can't protect them with that person running loose. And frankly, a lot of the people who commit these kinds of crimes, they should have never been running loose. The only reason they are loose and free is because as a society, we don't give a damn about broken people. We just don't. And so rather than doing things preemptively to recognize that this person is messed up, this person is severely mentally retarded, this person is a sociopath, whatever the thing is that we can easily recognize. But we say, hey, we're Americans. We believe in freedom, and they can just chart their own path. And so we just let them loose on society. I think that's one of the most immoral things that a society can do.
Yeah,
And so
but at the same
we
time, jails
end
are
we
immoral.
yeah, but
Um,
does that mean that every kind of confinement that we can do for someone who can't do society, is jail the only thing that we can think of? Is that the limit
well,
of our
people get put
imagination?
into
You could
mental
do
institutions.
50s and lobotomize them. I don't know. I
That
don't
that
know.
also is
I'm
another
good.
moral issue, right?
It is a moral issue, and it's one that disturbs me. However, if that's the only thing that's left, we do that.
Okay.
I
I
don't think that's better than going to jail.
I actually think it is,
Wow.
but I would, for instance, with someone who does a sexual assault, any sexual assault, if I'm the hegemon of the universe, that's going to come with a mandatory um, vasectomy. It's got to be a mandatory something, because, first of all, this person shouldn't be allowed to reproduce. Uh, if they assault again somehow, that shouldn't add that extra burden to their victim. I'm thinking about society, not punishment. Uh, and
So
so
can I
sometimes it looks the same, but understand where my heart is on it. The person who robs my house, if you can fix him
let me
and then let him go, let him go. I'm fine with that.
so let me I think this might help, right? So what you guys are talking about, so first of all, punishment, basically, what is punishment? All it is the deprivation of a certain benefit and or the imposition of a certain negative consequence or something like that, for the specified person purpose of condemning what was said, done, or whatever is being punished, the act that they did for being punished. So like that act of condemnation is the punishment. But in terms of the theories of punishment, there are certain justifications, and I this is what I hear, right? So that there's the retributionist justification for punishing someone, for condemning them either by putting them in jail, lobotomizing, whatever the punishment is, the deprivation. We're condemning them and saying what you did was wrong, and that's why you're receiving this. There's the retributionist mindset or justification, which is saying eye for an eye, like you did this for me, so therefore I'm going to stick it to you back. Repay insult for insult, repay eye for an eye. David, I think what you're arguing for is the pure consequentialist justification for judgment, right? So in this case, you're saying the reason we would punish someone, however we do that, if it's not jail, lobotomize, whatever, is for the purpose of rehabilitating the sinner's character, the criminal's character. We want to rehabilitate them. So you're taking a consequentialist thing, and I don't know if McAtack is taking the retributionist aspect, but I think that's what David reacting to, and he's saying, no, the reason we punish is for this particular beneficial consequence.
Well, in a sense, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, you done?
I do have something else to say, but I'll let you come back and then I'll say what I
No,
have.
I was just gonna say briefly, like in a sense, you need both in society. You don't just pick one over the other and say we only need this kind or we only need one kind. You do need both so that society in a way can move forward, and also for the individual themselves to have a chance to reform. That's why, like, someone says, like, oh, we should lobotomize them, then that's even if you think they're beyond saving, I mean, that's pretty cruel. So the like,
So Babylon
yeah,
5 did a most excellent show, uh, and the topic there was on the subject of essentially lobotomizing the death of personality as a means of punishment. It was an excellent piece of science fiction and art, and so I've been thinking about that ever since, and I absolutely agree that it is an extreme punishment. I mean, it's not a punishment. It's an extreme solution that is almost equal to um, execution because it is the execution of personality. That person dies and another person emerges. Um, so whether or not uh, that is a good solution, whether that's better than execution or not, I'm not sure, especially in this show where there's a possibility that the person could regain their former personality and then you have to do it again. Um,
Well, here's
and
the part. Oh,
go ahead.
here's the part that I wanted to raise for discussion between you guys, right? So it's kind of what McAtack said, like in a way, it's both. So I take a consequentialist understanding, but the point is, there are different consequences that are beneficial. So number one, there's the rehabilitation of the person, right? That's why we punish. There's also quarantine, right? The safety of others. David mentioned quarantine, right? We want to prevent a serial killer from being free on the streets to kill again. Um, for some reason, there's another one that I'm forgetting. Oh, deterrence. We want to deter other people from committing these same acts. But then this is what I think retributionists are getting at. There's the rehabilitation of the victim's character, seeing just punishment done to the criminal or the sinner rehabilitates the victim of the crime. It helps to reform their character. That's why I think punishment's an essential aspect, because it's not just about rehabilitating the criminal, but rehabilitating the victim. And that's what I wanted to throw out there, that as a possible beneficial consequence, to see, do you guys think that might help in terms of the retributionist mindset is really about, no, by seeing punishment done, we're justice helps reform my character as the victim, and it helps rehabilitate me and get over the crime that was done.
It's just revenge. It's just dressed up
no.
revenge.
So again, it's not revenge because again, you say that it's a necessity to have um someone who's harming other people off the streets. It's a necessity of the
Yes.
society we live in. So
Yes.
it can't be revenge because revenge is you trying to get back at that person for
No,
how
no,
they
no.
made you
What
feel.
Dale is saying with a retributive is just revenge. That it somehow reforms the victim's character. Well, what it does is make the victim feel good because an eye for an eye was served. Um, so in that system, it doesn't matter whether the victim doesn't care whether the person is reclaimed or not as a fully functioning person in society. They're just hurt and they want
Well,
revenge. So they feel better when they get their revenge. But that's not justice at that point. That's just
that's
revenge.
so like when those guys who murdered George Floyd, when they were thrown in jail, when they weren't thrown in jail and people rioted to have them arrested, were they rioting for justice or did they want revenge?
Well, I think in some cases there's a little bit of both. But what we should want is for people who are dangerous to society, who happen to be wearing a shield on a blue uniform. Those people, that's a wolf in sheep's clothes. That's a person who's there supposedly to protect you, but has the power to knock down your door and shoot you for no reason.
So it would be justice, right?
It
Or
no 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 no.
yeah,
It
no.
would be it would be putting a lion in a cage or exiling them from society so that they can't break through your house and eat your kids. That's what it is. That's what those people are. They become animals, and so you don't become mad at the person. I mean, you can be
Well,
mad at the person, but
well, people are mad at the person.
Yeah, there
what
is
you want, what you should want is for a society that is free from that.
And
And
that's I guess sorry, I just want to double click on that because you used the word should. And I'm always asking you on on the boards, like where does this should come from? Why should I want to do it like that instead of the way I want to do it another way? Where does that should come from?
yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. That's that's why
Yeah,
I said it twice,
that's
in
why we're
fact, and
here.
it took the second time to get you to bite on it.
it's a comedic
So
point.
I was just going to say it until
The
someone
reason,
finally got on.
the reason I laughed there, just the comedic point, and then when you guys are done, I have something to say. But I thought you said you become a Brian, and you were talking about not a lion, but Brian. That's why I was
Well,
laughing.
if you're talking about Brian Y, it's the same thing. Um, so yeah, where does the should come from? The should comes from our subjective, uh, enlightened selfishment to have a better society that is safe for our family, our wives, our kids to walk around in, even if they're black living in a white neighborhood. That's the should. That's where it comes from. Now, if you don't want that, if you don't want that kind of life, then you shouldn't want that kind of person out of your society. But the
You
should,
shouldn't or you should. I'm sorry. You
no,
shouldn't.
if you want the kind of society where black people have to be afraid, and they want their white protectors to harass black people, then you should want people like those police walking around. But if you want a different kind of society than that, then you should want them taken out of society. And
Okay.
how do we get our way? Well, you got two different sides and you have to negotiate. You simply have to negotiate with the bastards who want racism. Jim Crow was law after slavery. And you know why Jim Crow was the law of the land? Because slavers were mad about losing slavery, and they were also wanting a society where they could still keep their heel on the neck of
But from
newly
their
freed black
perspective,
people.
is the
Hang on. They wanted that. And so there were enough of them to create a second level of slavery that we call Jim Crow, which people who, if you don't know, you should study that period of history because it is a period that I think uh, could repeat itself. The reason we got that was because there was not enough negotiation and not enough power on the people who actually wanted equality in society. Even people who wanted slavery abolished didn't necessarily want equality. That came later.
but something that you're failing to consider in all this is that from their perspective, right, under their framework, we're treating your framework as how reality works. From their framework, how they understand reality, they're not doing anything wrong from their understanding, from their experience of reality, because they're saying this is the kind of society we want. And so if you just go by morality is how we feel about the things, then those people feel a certain way about things, and you can't really say that they are wrong, like objectively wrong. You can't say that, which you conceded during the debate with Dale just
Yeah,
now.
I don't need to say that.
You can only say I disagree with them and how they're thinking about reality.
That's
And
correct.
so
I can say that they're wrong if
right.
they want a particular kind of society. If they don't, fuck them. Uh, Society is going to suffer. And I think that, as I wrote in my write-up, evolution is slow and messy. All right. We've tried all kinds of things, and it's taken thousands of years, in some cases, to realize, yeah, that's a bad idea. Um, Even if you're an asshole, that's a bad idea. And I think the idea of non-equality, even though we're still litigating that, so anyone who thinks that's not being litigated today is blind and stupid. We're still litigating that. Evolution is slow and messy, but enough of us have come to the realization that inequality is bad. And all you need to do, even in this short period of time that it's been since we've had slavery and Jim Crow, is look at the South, which is a fucking shithole. It is a shithole. It's going to be a shithole in the next 100 years. It's still going to be behind everything in America. That's how bad their system was for the people who wanted it. No one is going to look at that and say, I want to do what they did.
So that's the motivation, perhaps. Like you're saying, like in terms of like economically, you're saying like, hey, you guys, you don't want to be like the South, so
Yeah,
let's. So it has.
economically,
So then it has
socially,
nothing to do
morally,
with.
educationally,
Well,
uh,
more you can't throw
the
morally in
South,
there.
well, the South in pretty much every category that can be measured is last.
Morally, or
It's a
morally
shithole.
it has a connotation of it being a standard for not just you, but for everyone else.
Okay,
So like if you throw
yeah,
it in there, then
I,
you're kind of making like an assessment
I would
that's
say it. I would say
completely subjective.
as an ethical, because I think that morally can be an overloaded word, but even in terms of civic ethics, the South is still behind in things that can be measured. You can look at things like crime, for instance, extremely high rates. I live in a place that has more crime than Midtown Detroit. Um, we lead the nation in murders, in assaults, rapes, and thefts, and things of that nature. This is what we are, and this can be directly traced to the history of slavery, Jim Crow, and lingering racism. The South is a shithole in every measurable way. It is always dead last in pretty much everything you can measure.
Okay, but you're again, in a sense, you're not addressing the main issue, because what I was saying before was that from their perspective, that's the kind of society. Maybe they're happy living in a society like that, so long as they get. Because when you were talking about how, uh, in a sense, everyone has this selfish enlightenment, and they say, well, yeah, you guys are doing it like that, and we want to do it like this. So why don't you do it like that, and we'll do it like this? But you're, in a sense, because you're on the other side of the aisle, you're looking at them and saying, you guys are acting immorally. And my contention is that you can't use the word immoral based on, or moral based on how you've defined it, as it being feelings about how you feel about a certain thing. So for them, they might feel like, oh, I shouldn't have to live in a diverse neighborhood. That's how I feel. So that's their morality.
Hey,
And you
I
say, well,
actually
I want to live in a
I don't
different.
disagree with you, Mac. I am I was on the Joker side in the original Batman, the only Batman that matters, besides the one that Heath Ledger was in. Which is to say, Gotham, decent folks shouldn't live here. You
Oh,
just let Gotham burn,
big burn,
because
let it all burn.
Gotham is what it, well, in some ways the South is what it is. Uh, Texas used to call itself a whole other country. I was one who would be in favor of Texas secession, Get rid of them. Cut them off the map. Put a big fence around them. Done.
but
You
you
want
see
to leave
how
Texas?
that
Great.
that morality is not feasible with like this is something that I bring up constantly on the forums, and I say like that what you just said right there, that does not make it possible. Like if everyone in the world believed exactly like you do, then it would be impossible for anyone to ever go to another foreign land and tell them, hey, you guys who practice this thing that's completely awful, you should stop doing this
Look,
because
someone can
you're
wait. We could wage war on Texas, even if they seceded. If
but
they're
then you have
doing
a
horrible
problem
things to if they're doing
with what
horrible things to people, we could and probably should wage war on
okay,
Texas.
so then
And
David, just
as an
you should
independent
never
country, we
I
would
should
be in a
never
better
hear you
condition
say
to do it.
anything bad about what happens in the book of Joshua then, because you just said we should wage war on the people of Texas because they're doing bad things.
I don't
And
think the people in the book of Joshua were as bad as Texas. So that
wow,
I'd say now here we go. So yeah, fuck Texas. Truly,
wow.
burn it to the ground. But look, you're losing a little bit of my original point, which is that the South is a shithole. And I'm not saying that to be mean to the South. I grew up in the South. I'm saying that as one of society's corrective measures, one of evolution's corrective measures for a very long time, at least the next 50 years, most likely the next 100 years, people are going to look at the American South and say, never again. We can cross that one off the list because we see how that one works out. It never works out well in the long term for social creatures. It never does.
Hmm. But again, my point kind of still stands, which says if everyone believed what you believe, then our world would, hate to say it, would be actually a lot worse than it currently is.
Well,
Because in
you
a
can
sense,
speculate that, and
no,
I
I'm
don't.
not. I'm not. I don't think
Okay,
I'm
you
speculating
travel
because
in a
if
time
everyone
machine, and you
thought
know for
that,
sure.
because I'm not even. I don't even need a time machine because if someone says, okay, those people over there who are doing their stuff that I completely disagree with, and there's a lot of people out there in the world who have customs and rituals that are completely abhorrent. But I don't think, oh, those people, you know what, they can die for all I care. All I care is that I live in my perfectly fine zip code over here and I can take care of my family and take care of my kids. I don't think like if that mindset specifically was like widespread, that morality was universal, that the world we live in would not just be chaos 24/7. Because if everyone is only looking out for their own self-interest or doing things so that society as a whole can cater to their needs, then there's no sense in which someone can take themselves out of a comfortable situation and put themselves in an uncomfortable situation in order to try and elevate other people's livelihoods or their morality or their understanding of reality
Mac,
because everyone is
let me
looking
help you, Mac.
for
I'm
themselves.
glad that I'm not in the kind of power that can make the decisions that my worst angels feel. Uh, I don't I don't want the South harmed. Some of the best and brightest at the top of every measurable statistic you can think of, people in the world live here. My family lives here. I don't hate my family. Uh, People who taught me how to be human uh, live here. The best examples of Christianity that I have ever met live here. I don't want a blanket nuking of the South, but the South has somewhat blanketly nuked itself. And what I am saying as corrective measures for society, everybody in the world can see it. It's such a blight in the on the main on humanity, not just America. Um, the South, some places in the South, um, it would be an insult to third world countries to call them third world countries. They're bad. And you may not have lived here or been here long enough to understand what it is, but it's a very known thing what it is. And it's the kind of thing, kind of like Rome, when it met its end, where people could look at from a historical view, maybe a few hundred years later, and say, "Yeah, we don't want that." And the South is that today. It is the warning, the deterrent to the world, to anyone who thinks doing what the South did was a good thing because some people made a profit while they were alive is a good thing. It tells them, oh no, that's not a good thing. And that's ultimately what I am saying. And even the people in the South who remain, I'm in the South for Pete's sake. Even the people in the South, many of them, they know what happened. They know what got them here. But this is where their home is. This is where they work. This is where their friends and neighbors are. We're stuck with it. All right. That doesn't mean that we raise the flag to support it. There are fewer and fewer people in the South who do.
So let's make the South like a term for people that you actively dislike. Not dislike, but you actually hate them, right? People who are human beings, but they have opinions about things that you absolutely hate. I'm not saying your family or whatever. I'm just saying people in general. And
I
let's
think I think
put them,
you'd have a better thing if you said Texas.
all
Uh,
right, Texas. Let's call them Texas.
yeah,
You're saying under
build
your
that wall.
understanding,
Build that wall. You just make sure
your
it goes
understanding
all the way around.
of reality, uh, that you would be okay with these people in a sense. So this is why it's kind of like so fuzzy. It's like, okay, you're saying it's in one sense you're saying, oh no, it's immoral to have people go to jail. It's immoral to punish people because it's revenge. But then on the other hand, you say, okay, there's a subset of human beings that if they disappeared from the face of the planet tomorrow, you'd sleep perfectly fine. And
Well,
Dale and I
that
don't have that same ethic
okay, but
of
that is
uh,
true though, and I might be a monster, but I think that society could be way better, especially under a system where a God decides who is here and who isn't. You've got to remember, God makes a decision on every human being, every atom in its position. He knows exactly who he's putting here and who he's not. It's like, but this is the guy who put a stand-in for Satan in a garden. Uh, so screw that guy and his judgment. Mine is way better than his, and mine is warped.
how
So
so? Like, how's your judgment? So, like, okay, I feel
I,
like
I
we've
wouldn't I
switched now,
wouldn't
but
put Satan I wouldn't put Satan in a Garden of Eden, and I wouldn't put some criminal um, gangbanger asshole inside of a peaceful gated community. I wouldn't do either one. God would.
all
God
right,
doesn't
but
give a
like
shit.
we've switched from like I was granting that your position is true, and now we've switched to now God exists, right? And you're saying, okay, you versus God in terms of knowing what's right. Like, help me understand this. Like, compare yourself to a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old. Like, you could say, or you would say that you know more about life and reality than a 15-year-old or a 5-year-old. Where I don't understand the like the objection you just put up is that you're comparing yourself to a god, right? Even whether you believe in him or not, who is like a lot older and wiser than you are, and you're saying, I don't understand why he would do this, therefore it's wrong. Like if you can see the gap between how you can a 15-year-old might question an act that you do and say, I don't think that's wise. And you can tell them, well, or a 5-year-old, which is much better, you could tell them, I don't understand why you think that why you're judging me. You're only 5 years old. You don't really know life the way a 55-year-old man would know, but you're not granting that exact same understanding to God. You're not granting that. In a sense, it's a matter of epistemology. Like you're saying, you know more because you're 50 years old. versus an infinite God.
But so I understand the thing you're trying to set up. I don't know that I would agree with the premise because you can have a righteous 15-year-old and an evil 50-year-old. Um, so I'd listen to the righteous 15-year-old on that. If you've got a person who's old, Donald Trump is old, but he doesn't give a shit about anybody. You don't have to you don't have to be some all-powerful wizard to recognize that.
Well, we're
Uh,
talking about wisdom, not righteousness. Like in terms of wisdom, because you said I don't understand why he would do that, and
okay,
I said,
but I
well,
think that God is described in the Bible as evil, and I can, in fact, make judgments on good and evil when it concerns
we're
human social well-being. And so once again, if I have a good community with good people who do good things and it's a good neighborhood and God says those people they need to be tested. So I'm going to send some gangbanger thugs in there to rob, kill, rape, and plunder. Fuck that guy. You're the one who would be saying, "Oh, but God is wise. You should just let that happen and appreciate the wisdom of God." No, I don't, and
that's not what I would say.
I question anyone's judgment who would say that. So, okay, then I
What I
have the
said.
right to say that God stuck a devil in a garden with newly created people that was supposed to be paradise, but they had to share that tenement, that nice gated community, with the fucking devil. I can make a judgment on that.
But you're making a judgment on the overarching purpose. You're saying like I don't understand, because it's like if a child comes up to you and say I don't understand like why you not let me have ice cream every day, and you tell them, well, you could either explain it to them, but like, okay, ice cream makes you sick, you'll get sick and everything, and they can understand something like that. And then there's other things like you're watching TV, let's say you're watching an R-rated movie, and they come and say, okay, I want to watch this with you. And you tell them, well, son, I can't let you watch this because it has themes in here that you will not be able to understand and it's not good for you. And they say, well, I don't understand why you'd not let me watch it. I mean, you're watching it. Why shouldn't I be able to watch it? So it's kind of in the same vein of like you're saying, okay, just because my dad won't explain why he's watching this thing that
That
has adult themes in it, and he's not letting me do it, then that means he's an evil person because he's enjoying it, but
I'm
he's not
sorry,
letting me enjoy it.
sticking a devil in a paradise is not analogous to not letting a kid watch TV. That's just too disanalogous
No,
to consider. Like,
it's an analogy of saying like, okay, just because you don't fully understand the reason for why an infinite God would allow something like that to happen does not mean that that thing happened because of evil purposes
And
or evil
I think there
reasons.
are some things that are beyond the question of do you understand it or not. I don't understand why sociopaths do what sociopaths do. I don't need to understand it to know that it's bad. So I think you're making too much of a meal in saying that we can't possibly know anything that's good or bad. Or maybe you'd special plead and say, well, we can know that when it involves other humans, but we can never know it when it involves God. And that's a special plead that is never going to land for me.
Well, I'm not saying that we can never know because, in a sense, uh, the Bible does tell us that God does everything in accordance with His will, and He's not letting things happen outside of His control.
Okay,
And so, like, um,
sociopaths do everything in accordance with their will too. That doesn't mean that it
correct.
can't be
Uh,
critiqued.
but the thing is, like kind of just like mixing two categories here. Okay, you have sociopaths who are doing um things according to their will, but on the other hand, you're saying, okay, they shouldn't be punished because it's not really, like we hold them accountable even though they're sociopaths who are doing things in their own way.
Not punished,
And you said, and
detained, restrained from doing the things.
is
This is
that
some
not
of what I'm
punishment?
talking about. No, it's not. This is what I was
You
talking about with the Texas thing. So the thing that I've mentioned this a few times. I don't know if I can come up with all the categories, but there are a handful of things that you can do with people who are wrecking your society. And you got to choose an option because we're humans. We don't have any other options. So uh, you can restrain them. You can kill them. You can exile them, or you can fine them. That's all. That's kind of all we can do. And we got to mix and match those options to protect society as best as we could. And so when I talk about building a wall against around Texas, first of all, they want that. So give it to them. Secede, my friends. But the second thing is, if they are actually as bad for society as I think that that terrible state is, then what I would be choosing is not killing them. I'm not choosing detaining them. I'm not choosing fining them. I am choosing exiling them. And I would simply exile them to their own place that they want to have anyway. They want to succeed. They have lawmakers who talk about it. Secession is on the books. They're technically not a part of the United States. Just give it to them.
But you say something like that, but then in another time, another place, I'll see you writing like hell is immoral, like letting people just be away from the presence of God. That's immoral. Shouldn't have such a place should not exist. Such a place is evil. So it's like it's always hard to like
Well,
keep
no,
track.
you think it's evil. I think New York without the Christians is good. Look
No,
forward to it.
you're saying. Well, first of all, that doesn't even make any sense. Second of all, um, it's always I feel like it's always like it's dialoguing with a different person depending on the day. So like in one day, it's fine if the people of Texas want to be in that part of the world and mess themselves up. That's perfectly fine with you. Uh, but the Christian ethic doesn't say like, oh, if people over there are messing themselves up, we're like that the story of the Good Samaritan where you just walk on the other side and you keep going about your business. Is that you help them, you reason with them, you try and help
I'm
them
not
out.
saying that we leave the people to a bad situation. Anyone who wants to flee in the Underground Railroad, we help them.
You can't
Uh,
reform
and
that
and and
place.
and if Texas becomes something that is so bad that there's nothing we can do to it except uh, bomb or send Abram tanks, I would be very sad about that. But we do that in the world right now. So forget
But
Texas.
is that a
Lots.
good thing? Is that
We've
how
got.
things should be done?
I think. I think it's.
Sending
I
tanks.
think it's the. I think it's the definition of failed negotiation. Uh, but sometimes failed negotiation is what we're left with because you still have to free the Jews from Hitler. You still got to do it.
But
Um,
again, that's actually a really bad example because the reason that the Americans got involved was because it looked like Germany were gonna win. So
right.
like
No, look,
we
the
gotta
Americans
save
were not
ourselves.
righteous. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Right.
imply that America was righteous. They were not. But I'm saying that there would have been righteous reasons to do it. And I wish that would have been the story of America in that war. It wasn't. Uh,
But under your belief system, when you said it doesn't really matter why people do things, then they did because you said you care more about the outcome, right? And
I
Christianity
still
cares
care about
more
oppressed. I
about
care
the
about
motives.
I care
So
about
when
oppressed. I care about oppressed people.
about
And
the
so
outcome, right? And as long
during
as people are helped, is that
during
accurate? Is that fair?
kind of during the time of slavery, for instance, uh, I'm speaking of this never having been a slave, but I can just imagine. Okay, during the time of slavery, I would rather the French and the Spanish come in and defeat America, defeat the Confederacy because there wasn't one America really. I would rather them come in as a foreign power and take over, and I would learn French as a free man rather than to be enslaved in the Confederacy. So I wish that someone in the world had looked at that situation and said, "Yes, we're going to do the right thing there." They didn't. Uh, People are shitbags, and we didn't go and save the Jews. So that's not our story either. No
But
heroes.
but that doesn't make sense in light of what you say is the truth about morality because in a sense you were right. You're saying the motive for why someone should be helped should be a good motive. It's not like okay, the Americans get involved in the Second World War to rescue the Jews from Hitler, but they're only doing it because they wanted to save their own skin, which translates to what you're talking about with
Right,
enlightened
right.
selfishness
Which makes it yes,
makes
it
it
is
a good thing.
It is enlightened self. I think it's kind of unenlightened selfishness because they had better
Why?
reasons to do it and they should have done. Well, no, no, no.
No, it's
They
enlightened.
had better reasons to do it. It's the old adage,
Better reasons.
the best time to do the right thing is at the time you should have done the right thing. The second best time to do it is now.
Yeah,
They
In
should have done it
honest.
if they were truly moral. They should have done it the second they caught wind that Hitler was killing Jews and
Agreed.
disabled people.
Uh,
But under your system, they didn't do anything wrong.
I,
Them getting involved late in the game was not wrong. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to
it wasn't
see
enlightened.
Brian. I wanted to get Brian's take on David's theory too, because he's
And
just
forgive me, I got to get up and go pee. So you guys talk among yourselves. I will get back. So I will quit dominating the conversation, but I think I probably had more spleen to vent than anybody. So I
yeah.
feel good about getting it. If we
Uh,
don't get back to it, Mac, I appreciate uh, that level of conversation. I wish we could do it more often. Thank you.
Take care.
I'm just interested in Brian. Like what's your take on enlightened selfishness as the basis for moral epistemology? Do you think it worked? Were you impressed with his reasoning? Did you think that any of the problems that I or Mac are listing are issues with it? Or yeah.
Um, so much of it went over my head, and I had trouble relating to. Seems to me that morality, or what we call morality, is how are sort of the rules that allow people to get along in society, and that these have changed all the time and continue to change, and that we're seemed to me that as a species, we have found that we have better survival chances if we work together. And at the same time, that's countered by, as a species, if we can dominate, um, if we can dominate others and force them to do what we want, we're the group that is on top seems to have a better chance of survival. So there seems to be multiple um, uh, things that are going on uh,
But
to allow us to come up with rules on how we're acting. And I think that um, so if it how much of it is self-interest versus yeah, it's self-interest, but it's also self-interest to take care of your family and your friends and society. So in that sense, I think there is a lot going on there. Um, so that's sort of my sense. I'm not sure that as Mac Attack knows, I tend to look at it less about I tend to look at things as more like the what is a harm or what is a benefit that goes on in a particular action. And so I tend to take a look and say, I think a situation or action is if it doesn't harm, if it the least amount of harm it causes and the most amount of benefit it causes is something that I endorse. And if it causes a great deal of harm and very little benefit, then I don't endorse that action. So those are sort of my thoughts, and I know that's seems to be uh, a different path than, or almost a different topic than what you guys were doing today. So,
the basis.
but I enjoy getting the different. I enjoy learning the different perspectives that both you and David and Mac have.
Okay. So yeah, it does sound like you kind of disagree about the selfishness aspect, like the greatest harm, the sorry, least amount of harm and the greatest benefit is for all people, including yourself as well, right? But kind of that the least amount of harm and the biggest amount of goods is kind of your view on that. What did okay, and yeah, I'm just kind of curious. What did you think of my epistemology, where I was talking about like thinking about like morality, our morality and epistemic tools as kind of like designed by someone. Do you think there's any merit? Like why is it all these faculties seem to work together to produce moral knowledge? Do you think there's any
I
merit
th
to the design notion?
um, only if you would consider evolution to be designed, a designer. Um, I think that that uh, evolutionarily we can take a look at benefits for certain acts as both to an individual and to a species. And uh, but if you're talking about God as an outside designer, um, I'm not convinced about that, or even something other than God as a designer.
All right. And last question, then I'll let Mac engage with you for a bit and stuff. But one of the reasons there's this issue of alignment, and I raised this with David about the evolution thing, right? Where it's just random and arbitrary as to whatever works for mere survivability of the species and stuff like that, where it isn't actually good to reduce harm or to maximize benefits and benefits for everybody and stuff like that. Um, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's your take on that, like that need for like a real standard of right versus wrong, and why should be if it's just if all of our faculties are ingrained by evolution, like why should I care about conforming about that? Because there is no like ultimate standards or outside standard. It's basically I feel this way because that's what led me to survive. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm understanding. When I take a look at, I say, let's take a uh, talk about slavery. Forcing one person to do what I want them to do, enslaving them, might have some benefits to me, but it also, I believe, has some harms to me. It, I believe I would be psychologically and emotionally and possibly spiritually harmed by enslaving a person. Um, and so there are two things going on there. And also, there might be some benefits to the person I'm enslaving because maybe the alternative is death, and maybe my forcing them to do certain things is not going to be a very big detriment. And so they might get some benefits out of it, but they also get some harms. So I'm not sure if it matters if there is some greater absolute uh, good or bad there. It's I'm just having trouble relating to that.
Okay. 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 Fair enough. Yeah. Mac, I'll let you engage with Brian if you want.
Yeah, like my biggest hang up with Brian's view of morality is that it it diminishes the nature of actions that people do that perhaps from the outward perspective appear to be beneficial for them or for even society as a whole. So, for example, slavery gets brought up a lot, and whether you agree with it right now or not, is slavery was the norm of the ancient world. And so, for you to say slavery is immoral or is harmful, you can't say that if you were living in the 15th century and you were like a European trader, because as far as you're concerned, that's how you make a living. That's how you provide for your family. Based on this understanding of it either being beneficial to society or to myself. Now, I'm sure that there were slave owners who thought, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this um, because, I probably shouldn't be doing this. But there was also the problem of, like, at that time, people were being taught that people of other races were not like fully human beings. Like this is what was being taught in schools and in academia. And the issue then becomes which is kind of what I've been asking on the forum, is how is it that a person in a society like that can decide to go against pretty much what, like, unanimously almost everyone else is saying? Because if you look at academia, they're saying this is the case. If you look at how society is thriving economically, this is the case. It's not like you have the benefit of time travel and being like, okay, this is bad economically. People were arguing that this is good economically. Like, if we let our slaves go, how are you going to be able to, do things in our houses? So all these reasons and justifications people gave were evil. And so if you just reduce it to harm versus not harmful, you're kind of taking away the onus for someone to disarm. This is what I meant by disarm the societal norms in a society.
The
And
moral
where,
reformer
and
argument, right?
I'm sorry?
The moral reformer argument,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, there's no onus to morally reform even your own society, I would argue, because right now we're living in 2025, but for sure 100, 200 years from now, people are going to look back at things that we do and say, and they're like, those people were acting immorally. And so a framework like the one David has of selfish enlightenment, or Brian saying it's only just, you just measure harm versus harmful uh, on a personal basis. First of all, that assumes that human beings are able to, like, in a very objective way, discern what is good and bad in a way that they can fix themselves 100%. And that's not the case at all. We don't have that 2020 vision to morally reform ourselves. And that's where it comes in, where you have an objective standard of morality that transcends what society is saying, transcends how we're feeling, because sometimes our feelings can lead us to doing things that are immoral, or things that are wrong, or even things that are harmful. So, like, people who get addicted to gambling, to alcohol, to drugs, these people are doing things that feel good, that society for the most part has said, okay, this it's not a bad thing. But everyone knows that gambling is, well, not everyone, but, like, generally speaking, gambling is you're just giving money away to the casino. But now in America, at least, that's changed. Now gambling is legal, and that's something that people do. So, so harmful versus harmless. This act specifically, it benefits the people who own the casino, but it obviously harms the person who doesn't own the casino and is always there, or even buying lottery tickets, right? People buy lottery tickets by the thousands every single day. I think that's immoral. I think that's something that people should not be allowed to do. I think it should be legal for these companies to even exist. But if you put it in a case of harmful versus harmless, then you create this imbalance where it's like, obviously the people in power have more influence to allow these things to happen. So you need a different standard by which to judge whether something is moral or immoral. You can't just go by harmful and harmless, because there are a lot of things in our world today that are very harmful that are allowed to exist in society, like hardcore drugs, um, like I said, lottery companies, casinos, and all these other things that are slowly becoming part of American culture. So unless there's a transcendent way of determining morality and what's moral that goes beyond human feeling, human rationality, there can't be any actual good way to live in society, or to reform society's bad habits. And one of those habits comes down to human behavior, like greed, for example. Like, how do you reform greed? And according to Christianity, according to the teachings of Christ, greed starts in the heart. Like, the reason you go to a casino is you're trying to win money by not working. You're trying to rely on something else. And so, like, that's where it should start. And I feel strongly, I believe strongly that scripture is the only way that human nature or propensities to do vice can be reformed. And that extends out to society as a whole.
So there was so much there, and it went so long.
Sorry.
I've forgotten. I'm can't address it all because I can't even hold it all in my mind. So just a couple of thoughts. One is that you were talking about centuries ago and slavery and lack of reformers or something like that. But I've said all along, and I believe Dale was talking about people getting together and doing moral reasoning, trying to discuss the reasons why something they think something is should change or should not change. And so I don't see how what I've said eliminates it or reduces any concept of moral reasoning. I think uh, if people don't understand how gambling hurts somebody, then talking to other people and getting the input on how gambling hurts or doesn't hurt people is sort of how you progress, how your minds get changed.
Yes, but
I
sorry to interrupt, Brian. Let's just keep it like one topic at a time because I'm sorry, I kind of went on a rant there. So in a topic like gambling, for example, like statistically, people lose money if they go and gamble. But right now in our society, gambling is allowed. And the people who benefit are the people who own the casinos. So then the question becomes, how do you like they'll say you can gamble at our site, and then they put a little writing at the bottom saying, please gamble responsibly, and then they give you a phone number to call if you get addicted. Shouldn't it, in a moral society, shouldn't that be the big text up front, and then the little text is like, okay, but if you want to gamble, come down. Like, what do you think about that?
what I think is that when I take a look at whether I want to gamble, I should be trying to weigh the pros and the cons, the excitement of an adventure, how much money I could win, how much money I could lose, whether it's addictive or not. I think that there is motives um, or desires for a wide variety of different things, and whether um, and when I decide whether to place a bet down on one thing or another, I I think it's smart for me to take those different things into account. And when I take a look at if in my city or my state there's a referendum on gambling, then I need to take a look at both the benefits and the harms that come for myself personally, but also for the people in the state. And and I would vote accordingly. Um, so so that's I'm not seeing. I don't think I need an objective lawgiver. Uh, I don't think I need to have uh, to look in the Bible to take a look and see where it says, "Thou shalt not gamble," um, uh, in order to come to that conclusion that, for me, it's the benefits do uh, the the benefits are not enough for me to want to gamble, and
So, okay.
I think a harm to society is better than the benefits to society. So that's just me.
Okay, but if someone else comes to the opposite conclusion, like how can you convince them that they're wrong if because it's legal in some places.
Well,
So
for them to place a bet, I would do as Dale said, moral reasoning. I would try to say, hey, don't forget there's all of these downsides, and 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 the and also look at take a look at it and make an informed decision. But I can't decide for them.
There's
right.
something I would like to just ask Brian, because this is something that is related to epistemology and has always come up with us. So I'm just kind of curious. Brian, I think you have said in the past that why do people come to the wrong moral conclusions or do immoral things? And I think at times you might have corrected me on this, but I think you've said that it's ignorance, right? They don't know what they're doing is wrong and stuff like that. So do you actually deny that people can knowingly do something wrong? Like they have moral knowledge epistemically that this is wrong, gambling's wrong, or this is right or wrong or something like that, but they still go ahead and do it, are all examples ignorance on your part?
I think that there is, in addition to the full knowledge of it, um, there can also be things. For example, in gambling, there is the excitement, the adventure of it. There could be addictive personalities. There are things like that that I one could say are a type of knowledge, but I am certainly believe that there are endorphins that are going on in people's brains that can cause them to make choices that intellectually they won't. They know is not intellectually the thing that's best for them, and they'll make choices that they know is not in their best interest or in other people's best interest.
Okay,
Does
so
that answer your question? So
um, I don't think.
not strictly knowledge.
Okay, okay, so put it this way: does anyone knowingly, like, through fault of their own, right? So like they're not being influenced by unfairly influenced by endorphins or mind control or a drug or something like that. Does anyone say like, yeah, I know this is wrong, but I just want to do it. I will to do something wrong, and I'm not being unduly influenced by anything other than, hey, I want the benefits of doing this sinful act or this wrong act. Do you think that people can do that?
Sure, absolutely. I
Okay.
think people look at all the time, look and say, uh, uh, doing this action, the there is benefits, and the harm that it does to other people. I don't care about the harm it does to other people. I just want the benefits for me.
Okay. Okay. So I thought you denied that then. So that's why I was asking about that, because I thought you said it was only through ignorance that people do wrong things. So yeah, if you don't say that, then I'll butt out and let Mac continue with his thing. But thank you
Actually,
for
No,
don't butt out so quickly. I think what Brian has said in the past, and it may be something different now, so I'm not holding anyone to what they've said in the past, including me, is that selfishness, we can all be selfish, and we can do things out of bad motives that give us a hit of endorphins for the moment, but are ultimately bad. But that is what I, in my thesis, call unenlightened selfishness, and I do not support that. So, under enlightened selfishness, if a person ends up making a bad decision, say they think, "Oh yeah, this thing will bring me pleasures and is not going to bring anyone harm," and they just are factually wrong about it, uh, that doesn't make them bad. That just means they're factually wrong, and they would have made a different decision if they had better facts uh, about it. And so ultimately, even the people who are unenlightenedly selfish do not believe that they are committing some kind of bad thing or thing that's going to cause them harm or something that's going to kill their neighbor or something like that. And if they had known that, had they had a better knowledge of that, they may not have acted in that selfish way. And so, in one sense, just being human means that we're all acting in an unenlightened way because we don't have the enlightenment of a God. And we don't even have the ability to know which things God is telling us, even if you believe in the God, you want to follow the God. You don't have a knowledge of knowing which God is right, which things that some Christians are saying is what God's will is, which interpretation of the Bible best explains that. So even trying to be enlightened Christians, you're going to run into the same problem. And so at some point, you can say that this action that you're doing now means that you're going to die alone on the street. You simply wouldn't do the action if you knew it was going to mean that you die alone on the street. Your family is going to be gunned down, and everybody you know and love is going to be gone down. So I think that your question kind of misses some of the nuance of some of the conversation. It's not a matter of whether we might do some things that you think are wrong on our own volition, but it is that we are doing things with incomplete knowledge. And if we had complete knowledge, we wouldn't do it.
Wait, so David, do you ever do things wrong with complete knowledge, or you never do that?
I never do anything. Um, I guess we'd have to litigate what we mean by wrong here.
Well, things that are
So
wrong, let's
if
say
you're
by your
asking if
moral
I
standards.
choose a donut rather than a carrot, yes.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking
Okay.
about like moral
When
choices that you
when you
make.
were a Christian, you believed in certain things were sins, and you had knowledge from the Bible. Did you still tell a lie? I remember you
Do
stories where
yeah.
you chose to sin, even as a Christian. Like, have you done that? And was your knowledge sufficient in that case? Because if
Yeah, when I was a child, I thought that all lying was sinful, and I tried to live by that. And I realized even as a Christian, that's there. This requires some nuance. It's kind of like saying all killing is bad.
Well,
That requires
well,
some nuance.
my question wasn't like, oh, I know I'm supposed to diet, so let me have this cookie. I'm asking about a situation where you've done something wrong and you knew it was the wrong thing to do. Because the way you presented it before was like saying like, oh, the only reason humans do wrong things is because they have insufficient knowledge. So I'm asking, is there a situation where you've had complete knowledge of a situation and done something wrong
Yeah,
still?
let me try read this carefully because it's going to be easy to soundbite this and make it stupid. Um, so there are things that are merely ideological that you think, okay, ideologically this is wrong. I don't have any. It doesn't seem wrong to me. I don't see any negative consequences in society. It's just ideologically, I'm supposed to think this thing is wrong, so I guess it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. Um, so the answer would be yes, I'm supposed to think this thing is wrong. I don't really think this thing is wrong at a truly emotional level, but uh, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And those things become a great cause of guilt burden that you've done this thing that, you know, God supposedly says is wrong, but you didn't really think was wrong and it didn't really cause any harm. It's just wrong
Well,
because it's wrong.
I'm not invoking God. I'm asking like because you said
Well, but
um
I'm trying to explain that in the context because you said, well, you were a Christian, and so
no, I Dale said that. I said nothing
okay.
about you being a Christian. I was asking like because you said under selfish enlightenment, there's selfish enlightenment and then there's unselfish enlightenment. And you said, okay, the reason people do things that are
No,
immoral,
unenlightened selfishness.
unenlightened, yeah,
Yeah,
unenlightened selfishness.
yeah.
Okay. Um,
Sorry, guys,
people do things.
to interrupt, but I'm going to have to sign off. But thank you very much. I had a great time.
Thanks
Appreciate
so
it.
much for being on the show, Brian. I look forward to hearing the parts that I missed.
Okay, bye.
All right.
take
Bye.
care. First show with Brian as a participant. So yeah.
No, not exactly. He's been on before. Maybe not for that long, but he's been on before. He's come in and out.
Yeah, but like he's never contributed like substantively to the conversation as far as like he'll come on and say, "Hi, here I am. I look like Gandorf or something," and then he
Yeah.
goes away, right? So like,
Well, yeah,
this
he's usually it would be like in a moment wherein we're in a show and we'll say, does anyone have anything to say? Or you know, he left something in the chat and give him a chance. So he will come on from time to time and do that, but not this long. So this is a show to be remembered. Um, let's go back to the thing though,
Okay.
Matt,
Yeah.
because I think
So
your Mac, I think your question is a good question. Uh, and I just don't think there's an easy way of go. I have definitely gone against what I had been told was true. I have,
um,
I
sorry
have,
to interrupt.
okay, go
But
ahead.
like the question I'm asking, not what other people have told you
Okay.
about what you know personally is wrong about an action. Like, let's say, for example, it's wrong to lie to the police. Like, if they say, "Did you see so and so do certain act?" I'm not saying you said this or did this,
Right,
but
right.
police are looking for a suspect, and you say, "Nope," because you're lying to the police and you're impeding an investigation, for example, and you lie.
Yeah, I don't know that
You
that's a good example for me. I'm trying to work with it and just say that's not a good example, but I lied to the Gestapo every day. So I I don't know that there was ever a time when I wouldn't lie to the police. Uh, and
okay, but like
and then consider it righteous.
no, I'm just saying like an example of you having complete knowledge about a situation and then choosing to do the wrong thing anyway, because it comes down to that, and that's where people are culpable, are held morally responsible. But you said, "Oh well, that doesn't matter in the end," but
I
it does
don't
matter. It
I
does matter
so
either way.
I don't think that the answer is yes, if I understand your question, but it may be no. There are lots of things that we're told that are wrong, that we have convinced ourselves, okay, well, I guess these are the social rules for my particular clan, and I have to try to make myself do this or not do this. It's wrong to smoke. I shouldn't go behind the gym and smoke. But fuck it, you're a smoker, you don't see anything wrong with it, and so you do it. Um, that's a situation, by the way, I was never a smoker, but that's a situation where society has fed you a line that you don't accept. Now, society might be right. That is stupid to smoke and harmful, and you harm other people, but you don't actually think it is. So, do you go and smoke? Yes. Are you doing something knowingly wrong? No, you're not, because you actually, in your truth of yourself, don't believe that it's wrong. So I don't know that I have done things, even bad things that I have done knowingly. Life is very complicated. And you might say on the surface, this thing that I'm about to do is supposed to be wrong. But I actually know a fuller situation. And it's not. It's like me asking you, has God ever done anything wrong? And you would give this exact same kind of answer that I'm giving right now. um, and say, well, it'd be wrong for you, but maybe God has good reasons why it wouldn't be wrong. Uh,
So you're
so I would
saying
I would
that
not say that I have knowingly done something that I believe in my heart of hearts is truly wrong.
you've never done that. It's
I don't
interesting.
think I don't think so, but I have definitely done things that I was supposed to think was wrong.
Done things you were supposed to. What? You were
So I was
supposed to
gonna
think.
say, like there have been stories where you admitted to doing this, but if you're now saying, oh, but in those times I was just saying that I was did something as a Christian that I shouldn't supposed to, but actually I didn't believe it was wrong. So I'm not sure if that's what you
Well, yes, in a true heart of hearts kind of way, like in the same way that I said I would lie to the Gestapo every day. Um,
Well,
so
not the
don't
Gestapo.
care. So you can say, well, you shouldn't lie. Well, you said the police, and I just up the ante a little bit. But I would lie to the police every day if I thought that the police were corrupt and that my telling the truth would do a greater harm.
well,
So it's
okay,
it's
but as a
not
Christian, so you
as a
lied to the police as a Christian, right? There,
no, no. It's a hypothetical. I would have. In the same way that in Nazi Germany, I would have lied to the Nazis about hiding a Jew,
okay,
right?
so
And I would feel zero guilt about that, even though the idealism of what I believe might say, but that's a lie. I don't care.
Okay, so that would be an example then of you actually knowing, despite what you just said, you actually know. Why? Because I've heard your testimony. You were totally ignorant about the until you were 40 years old, you knew nothing about the gangster side of life and that police were corrupt. You said you were a sweet and innocent little Christian, that you had to train, you even said you had to train yourself to think that way about the police and to think in that countercultural way after the age of
Yep.
40. So as a Christian, you thought, yeah, the cops
Probably not
are
40, but yes, later in life. Yes.
cool. So as a Christian, you're like, the cops are my friends, but you were saying even as a Christian, you would have lied to them. So like that's
Yes, if I thought that it was going to do harm, in the same way that as a Christian, once again, hypotheticals, I would lie to the Nazis if I were a Jew. I would do that, and I wouldn't think that it was a lie. We would even sometimes talk about these things in, like Wednesday night Bible classes
Uh,
and things like
right.
that. So I
So why
absolutely
did you think
would,
cops were bad, though? I don't understand. As a Christian, before you,
because we have examples of, like I said, Nazis in Nazi Germany and the Jews. Those were cops. They were bad. All right. So I could easily imagine uh, cops being bad. Just because they were police officers doesn't mean they were good. Um, so
okay, well,
yes, I could
simplify it.
definitely, I could, and even then, you got to understand, Dale, I grew up in America. Uh, uh, Police being bad people isn't new. And people in my community who had been harmed wrongly by police wasn't new. Now, I didn't necessarily listen to them. I didn't delve into the history, but that's been around for a long time. I grew up around that, hearing that. I could definitely imagine being faced with that kind of police officer in a situation where it was going to do harm, where I wouldn't mind lying any more than I wouldn't mind lying to a Nazi, and I would have done it with righteousness in my heart.
But
Okay.
okay,
Okay. Well,
this is going down a rabbit trail. I'm sorry, because like
I'll
I
just
asked the
say,
initial question,
yeah.
but
Let
it's
me just
going
say
down
this.
a place I didn't intend.
Nah,
Go
let
ahead.
me
Go ahead.
just say this quickly so that you can make your point. So forget about David. You're not going to get it out of him. But I will
Hey,
even, I don't think, no, I'm not insulting. I'm just saying, like,
forget about David.
no, well, you're claiming
What are we
you
doing here?
never knowingly sinned, but I'm just saying to prove that it's possible. I, even as a Christian, post my conversion of 2018, I still struggle with the flesh, and I'm ashamed to admit it. But there have been times where I have knowingly did a sin kind of thing, even as a Christian. I'm thinking of a specific example, kind of thing that I won't go into, but yeah, it involves another person or something, another Christian and stuff, right? So I have knowingly sinned. And I repented afterwards. It's not reflective of my heart and stuff, but even as a Christian, I've told a white lie and stuff like that. And I knew it was wrong to even tell a white lie in that instance. So this can and does happen. This phenomenon where people don't just sin out of ignorance. So with that,
And I would say that that's it. What I would say to that, Dale, is that's one of those ideological sins. It's not so. Sure, I have uh, when I was a Christian committed some ideological sin like lying that I could justify. Um, and um, I, as you grow up, you realize that life is messy. And sometimes the right answer is, yes, that dress is beautiful on you. Sometimes it's the right answer. Sometimes the right thing to do feels like the wrong thing to do, but ideologically. Sometimes you have never agreed with some bit of ideology. Um, and so you
nice
do the thing
construction.
that you think is right. I don't want to be put in a corner where the ideology is the thing that is the right or wrong thing. It's just an ideological thing. So I try to do the right thing, or the thing that's not harmful, even if it is ideological against some of the tenets of my community.
Mhm. Well, yeah, but
Um,
in my case, I knew, and sorry, Mac, right to you after this, but in my case, so the specific example I'm thinking of was actually an instance of gossiping, and this is something that I try so hard to do. Like I always say, look, never say anything behind someone's back that you wouldn't say, been comfortable saying to them in their face and stuff like that. And rarely ever gossip, but on this occasion, I did gossip against this person. I called them a cheapskate to a friend behind their back, and I knew that yeah, I wouldn't have said that to their face in that way, kind of thing. So I
Okay, but I've
messed up.
forgiven you for that. Okay,
Yeah,
you
oh
don't
yeah,
you
I've
don't have to keep.
apologized, repented of it, and
Yeah,
forgive.
yeah,
But
you're
the
good.
point is, it
You're
wasn't out
cool.
of ignorance. I'm like, oh well, maybe gossiping's okay in this case. Yeah, yeah, he's a cheapskate. Let's talk behind his back and
I
stuff.
think that gossiping is okay in some cases. Sometimes it's
I, I,
effective and necessary in forming. So I mean, it's so complicated. When I was younger, it was all black and white, but as you grow up, it is way more complicated. Yeah, I don't believe in gossiping, but if I know that there's this one teacher, this one principal that molests children, uh, I'm not going to keep that a secret. Uh, if someone tells me a secret where, they're actively doing a harmful thing, I'm not going to keep it. Um, so this
Well,
is where you get differing values that are competing, and you have to do the best thing. And this is why ideological morality can be so dangerous, because you can do very bad things that have very bad results in the name of ideological purity.
okay. I'll let
Um,
Mac respond.
just to go back, because I was the one who started the question,
Sure.
and the reason I was asking the question is because, um, like, I feel like this question should not be uh, difficult to answer because it's asking, okay, you make choices every day, you make enlightened choices and you make unenlightened choices. And I was trying to understand how, in a sense where you're evaluating a situation, and I'm not asking about like whether you'd lie to the Nazis. Like this always comes up for some reason. Like most people will never find themselves in a situation like that. I'm asking about like a lie. You tell someone asks you, okay, did you do this thing? And you say yes or no, and you didn't do it. And you know that doing that is wrong. Like lying to a person that, let's say, a person you trust is wrong. And if we compound that even further, like something like someone who says, "Oh, I'm going to cheat on my spouse." We know that's wrong. Adultery is wrong. But I don't understand how in this framework of enlightened versus unenlightened, people can be held responsible because anytime anyone is making a decision, um, they could later on just justify it by saying, "Oh yeah, I was just being unenlightened. I was being unenlightenedly selfish." There's no way for them to actually be accountable for anything that they do. So how can someone ever say I was in the wrong outside, like I was in the wrong while introspecting their own actions? Right. Even that's kind of the symptom that just came out right now. Because David, like I'm sure you've done things in your life that you look back on and you regret, or you've done things and at the moment right before you do and you're like, this is a wrong thing for me to do. I know it's a wrong thing for me to do, but you do it anyway. And so like how does that fit into that entire framework?
Well, I just have to be repetitious. There are things that uh, are ideologically wrong inside of a system that you don't internally actually believe are wrong. And there are things that you actually do believe are wrong and harmful. And I think there's just a distinction. So, a Jehovah's Witness whose child is sick and needs a blood transfusion or else they'll die. Their belief that uh, one should not do blood transfusions is an ideological shackle that is utterly unnecessary, and it gets tested in that moment to see whether you actually believe it or not. And I think that most of them actually don't believe it because they give their children blood transfusions because their children are alive. Um, so I do separate out this idea of ideological wrongness. And when you talk about sin, sin is an ideological wrong that just doesn't make contact with the real world, as far as I'm concerned. So it's really hard for me to think in terms and equate sin with wrong.
Do you ever? Go ahead, Mac.
I'm not using the word sin as in terms of your beliefs or your worldview. I'm just asking in your worldview, how is
Right.
someone held accountable? They can just say, well, I made an unenlightened choice. That's too bad. Next time I'll try and do better. It's like, it all comes down to,
When did I say that they weren't accountable, though? I mean, this question
um,
about accountability is often a red herring, and you asked the question when you were talking to Brian that I specifically called out in my write-up as utterly disingenuous. When you ask the question, well, what are you going to do if people don't agree with you, kind of thing, and that's just about as unenlightened question as you can ask, because
why?
your worldview it lives in the same world as mine. And so you don't have an answer for it either. That's a genuine question. If you have an answer for it that no one
I do
else
have an
does,
answer for it. I do
you
have an answer for it.
you do not. You literally do not, because you literally can't. It's not something that can yield to an answer. People in your worldview sin all the time.
Right, because
Sin is a real thing to you.
it is
Uh,
a real thing. And I'm sorry, Dale, just a sec. And it's
well,
a real thing because that makes people accountable because there's a sense in which people know the right thing to do, but they choose to do the wrong thing.
right, but they're
Whereas,
accountable by an invisible being that will make that account later in their own way. That has nothing to do with how you live in society with that person today. And so if you've got someone who's doing things that you don't agree with, and maybe you and people like you are not in power, it does not matter. This is the whole purpose of my grant with Dale. Doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter if you're right, because you still have to deal with the question of, okay, but what are we going to do about this as a society? It has nothing to do with
right,
whether you
but
are right
your
or wrong.
solution to that was let them build a wall, let them stay over there.
No,
My
that
solution
was my
isn't
solution
that.
for Texas,
My
because I
solution is
particularly don't like
they should
Texas.
be they
I just
should
want
be
to just be
reformed.
clear. My solution was about Texas. Okay.
But my solution extends to everyone. It's not just
Okay.
I
So
don't even the
tell
people
me
that you
your
are saying.
solution, and then I will say, well, then I guess your question isn't disingenuous, because you have some enlightenment that the rest of the world doesn't have. So can't wait to hear it. What's your solution to that question?
Repenting and believing the gospel. Because if someone really
Okay, you
truly
can't make
believes the
people. You
gospel,
can't
then
make.
they
I'm
cannot.
sorry. You can't make people repent. They don't
I,
agree with you. They don't believe in your God. So what's your solution?
people do like. So here's the thing: a culture does not need 100% a unanimous. Like we still have racist people
Right. So
today.
you have
We
to
still have. Oh,
negotiate.
just a sec. Let me answer.
Okay.
So it's not a question of like looking at people and saying, okay, those people over there cannot be redeemed, like the way you have a view on Texas. I don't have that view. So the solution would be you go and you share the gospel with them, and you're against this in other avenues because you say if you go over there and you share the gospel and you get killed, then you're a fool. So that's definitely fundamentally different from everything that I believe and everything that Christianity teaches about the nature of human beings because America used to own slaves. America used to have it's full of racist people. That doesn't mean that we've erased all the racist people in the world or in the country, but it's a lot better today than it was 200 years ago. And that's what's fundamentally missing from your worldview.
No, it's not. It's central to my worldview. So you just haven't been paying attention to my worldview. The fact of the matter is, your solution is the same as my solution, which is what Dell and I ended up coming to, and where I thought we would. Because no matter what you think the right thing is, you can't force people to repent. You can't force people to believe in your God. You can't force people to do the right thing. You have to negotiate exactly the same way as I do. You started your idea with something that is chilling but true. If I can get enough people in power uh, who agree with me, great. Okay, so and that's where Christianity is going now. Let's get enough people in power to agree with us and enforce our morality on people. I don't necessarily think that's the right thing to do, but negotiation does say pluralistic negotiation does not require an all or nothing. It
But they're
requires
not
that.
doing anything wrong. They're not really doing anything wrong because you just said
Well,
that's the
it doesn't
valid
matter.
way.
It doesn't matter whether you're doing anything wrong or not. You're creating a society that is bad or hindering a society that would be good, and that's why we negotiate. Uh, we do not, in fact, try to do some kind of ideological enforcement. I think that what Christian nationalism in America is doing is exactly the wrong thing to do. I think that my idea of building a fence around Texas is way more humane than what Christians are doing
Is this
right
being recorded, by the way?
now.
I
I
don't
sure hope so.
because I don't think that putting people behind a fence is can be called humane.
Well, it's a
But
fence
I
that they
Dale,
want.
I cut off
Okay,
Dale. Dale was
it's
about to say
they're the
something.
ones screaming to build a fucking wall, man. I'm just
Me?
give them the
Oh,
tools and and help them with the labor. Just make sure it goes far enough. That's all I'm saying, man. Texas wanted to succeed. Why succeed? Why did we stop them? Look, I understand this from a historical perspective, and once again, I'm glad that I'm not the one who gets to make those calls. We have a better world because I'm not the one to make those calls. But at some point, I believe that places like Texas, Oklahoma would be another one, are so harmful to the union. They're so deleterious to good society that you do have to do something. I don't want to nuke Texas. I don't want to nuke Oklahoma. They're the ones who want to build a ghetto of sorts. They're the one who has this fantasy that if we have a theocracy based on our idea of God, then would be great. And I'm just saying at some point, maybe the best thing we can do is let them and make sure that stays contained. You can still do trade agreements with them. You can still negotiate technology, things like that. I don't think most people who live in that kind of society that they were screaming for really want that. They don't want to transform their society. They want to transform everybody else. Once again, it's not a negotiation in the way that I mean. I think it's the most harmful kind of negotiation that they're trying to do. They are trying to do with power what they're unable to do with human interaction.
um, I'm still interested. I think I cut off what Dale was going to say, but ultimately, I don't think Dale agrees with the notion that it's all about like morality is just negotiating, unless I'm wrong about that, Dale.
No, I don't think morality is just about negotiating, but yeah, like I mean, first of all, moral reasoning with each other, this is a means that God gives to help us attain moral knowledge. But I think what David was talking about in the context was like there was a question in the chat. I think it was from Brian talking about like, well, what if you do we do all this reasoning and at the end of the day the guy just says, well, I just don't agree with you. I don't see it, right? Like David's kind of disagreeing with us right now. He's just saying like, hey, no, nobody, you're always unenlightened. If you choose to do something wrong, you don't really do so knowingly. You're somehow ignorant, somehow enlightened. You don't buy the ideology that says lying's a sin or gossiping. Somehow you're not knowingly saying like, yep, I'm gonna sin today or something like that. So at the end of the day, if we after we reason it, we argue it out and stuff, and there's just no, like we can't convince him, then yeah, we can't force him to change his mind or anything like that. And even God can't force a free will agent to choose a certain thing. That's why he has to, he does everything he can to persuade us and stuff, but he can't force David to repent or to see the need for repenting. He doesn't see that he's ever even committed a sin, let alone a sin, but
Yeah.
knowingly done something wrong, which I think is clear. Like the Bible's clear, we've all clearly sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I can attest that I myself have done this experientially. So it happens. It's part of our moral
Yeah.
landscape. And David's theory, if
I
this is
don't believe in sin. So you say the Bible, according to the Bible, I don't care. That's not a real thing to me. So at the end of the day, we still have to negotiate. So let me ask you and Mac both this question will maybe help crystallize.
oh,
Uh,
but I thought you were saying at the end of the day, look, we've done the negotiation and you still don't agree. Like at
right.
that point, okay, it just is.
Right. So here's the thing. What are your thoughts about prohibition? So I will tell you now, when I was a Christian, a young Christian, particularly, I loved the idea of prohibition. I
Mhm.
mean, if what you're saying is alcohol is so bad, you can't sell it on Sunday. It's so wrong that you got to get ID for it, and even after that, it wasn't good. It was so bad at one point. Okay, you can't advertise it. It's so bad that you just keep going on with it's so bad. And so finally, what we did is prohibit it. We took a moral stance and prohibited something that the theocrats who were in charge at the time thought was so bad it should be prohibited. I thought it was a good thing. I thought, in fact, for a while that we should prohibit it again. But not only that, but we should prohibit cigarettes. I felt stronger about cigarettes than even alcohol. Um, there's just no positive thing you can say about cigarettes. You talk about crack cocaine, great, crack and cigarettes, because they're both negative with no positive benefit to individuals or society. It's bad for society, both of them. And in fact, we lose a lot more money as a society because of alcohol and cigarettes, I think, than we ever will on any kind of drugs, because of healthcare, if nothing else. Um, and so, um, eh, furthermore, let's pretend, so you're going to have to pretend with me because I don't know the truth of it, that in your theologies, uh, uh, smoking was a sin. It's an ideological sin. Would you be in favor, if you were in power, of making it illegal, recognizing that that would wreck several economies, that you would probably end up with a civil war, because you most definitely would, that many millions of lives will be lost in that war, but you're taking an ideological stand because it's right. Would you do that with power, if you had the power to outlaw cigarettes? Would you do it?
No, I don't think I would in this case. And that, again, that's going against my emotions, because I kind of would want to,
Me too.
but I think it would be the wrong thing to do, morally
Me
speaking.
too.
Okay, yeah, because and so does God. That's the big look. It's not for us as Christians to impose our higher Christian ethics onto unbelievers and stuff like that. And because of that, God does permit things within a free and democratic society.
Okay,
Um,
you can bring up God, but this is why we negotiate, though. We both, we're dealing with people who do think that smoking is okay. Smoking is wrong, but at the end of the day, your knowledge doesn't move the needle. We have to sit down at the table, try to figure out a compromise, some regulations, advertising rules, identification rules. You have to negotiate the same. That's what I mean by
well, I
negotiation,
mean,
right?
you don't have, like, if you're talking about, like, you necessarily. I'm not sure what point you guys are debating here. Like, it sounds like, okay, if you're trying to make laws, would you have to sit down? You can't, like, I can tell you now, here's something that will be controversial for sure, but I would do it. If I had absolute power to run the country, abortion done, complete ban, nope, can't be done, at all. And strict criminal prosecution for the doctors and the women that did it. Um, so, like, there's no negotiation. If I had power, this is what's morally right. My knowledge is sufficient to base that conclusion on. So
Okay,
abortion's
okay,
done.
but remember in my hypothetical with cigarettes that you believe it's a sin.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay, so you would
if I could chime in,
yeah, you would be a hegemon on one thing and not on another. At some point,
Because the
you have to
costs of
realize
that
that's right.
sin. Yeah,
That's what I mean by negotiation. That's exactly what I mean. Um,
well,
Mac,
Mac's
though.
not denying, like, what is the problem? What is Mac's denying that, like, yes, we would need to, if you're confronted with a unbeliever who disagrees with your morality, like, we need to sit down and explain or try to persuade you of our cause. Like, I don't think he's
Yeah, I'm
denying
saying
that.
that
yeah,
I'm saying that in
yeah,
the end of the day, ideology doesn't matter, and you have to set it aside if you're going to
no,
live in a
um,
pluralistic society. If
ideology definitely does matter
if I
because
if I ran a business, which I have run a business, and I had workers who smoked, as much as I despise smoking. As much as I despise things like smoke breaks, I don't think I would do smoke breaks, but I would create a smoking area. I would do that despite the fact that I despise it because it's a part of
So that's ideology.
necessary negotiation in a world of people who smoke.
But
Well,
you're
that's your
negotiating
view.
with ideologies. Sorry, Matt, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, my ideology, you're negotiating with me. My ideology informs my opinion. So it's always a part of the negotiation. Just like your ideology, yes, you may not have a little religious ideology label or something like that, but you've got an ideology that's informing you. Obviously, it's saying, look, I'm against cigarettes.
It's informing you. Remember the grant. In the grant, your opinions were right. Doesn't matter because you still have to deal with people who disagree. You still have to have a world where you all can live and raise your families. Otherwise, we just all build nukes in Abram tanks. That's the world you live
Well,
in.
that's
You
no,
can't.
that's taking it to an extreme. It's not a question of so like when you're talking about making laws for society, you can't legislate sin, and that's part of what Jesus was talking to the Pharisees about and how they were trying to make laws to make sure that people didn't do specific sins, and they were making laws for laws for laws for laws for laws, and it led down to legalism and Pharisaism and something like smoking. Like obviously, if you're talking to someone who's a smoker, there's multiple elements involved there. You have possible addiction, or you just have ignorance that they just don't know that this is bad for them. So if you talk to a person like that, obviously you'd approach them and tell them and try and help them. Um, but if they don't want your help, then in a sense, they've made a decision for themselves that even though they know that this is harmful for them, then they want to do it anyway. Now, on a societal scale, like, would you make it illegal? I feel like that's the laws that a society makes reflects what they prioritize. So if we're a society that prioritizes autonomy, then we're going to make it that people can do whatever they want, even though it's wrong for them, and they can still do it because we prioritize autonomy. But if we prioritize well-being, as a lot of atheists say, then logically speaking, things that cause cancer would not even be part of our society. So we don't live in a world that's that neat and that well set up. So and we have this destroyed view of autonomy where okay, everyone has to have a right to ruin their own life if they want to. So in a society like ours, then making something like smoking illegal would, uh, it just really wouldn't affect it wouldn't bring about the desired effect, even though the more effective way of going about it would be to tell people, hey, smoking is bad for you, you shouldn't do it. But in previous generations, they used to tell people smoking makes you cool, so you should do it. So in a way, we're kind of like fighting what a previous society did, and we're just trying to reverse the effects of that. But when it comes to other things that are more nefarious about our society today, like human trafficking and how human trafficking like funds the pornography business and everything like that, and it's like in a sense as a society as a whole, we're pretty complicit in that. We don't really care as a whole about how harmful that is, not only to anyone who consumes it, but anyone who like is an actor in there. We say, okay, this is a kind of empowerment. So if I had to, if I had that kind of power, like I would probably ban all of that. But you can't do that because in a sense, our society values something like autonomy. It says my absolute autonomy is what matters the most. And so this is where the moral reform comes in. The reform has to be at a deeper level than just negotiating, like, okay, let's do the pros and cons. Let's make a list of why this is good and why this is bad. Because human nature goes far deeper than that. It goes down to the motivation level. And that's where believing the gospel comes in, because what matters is your motivation for doing things. And if you're doing things out of a sense of self pleasure or enjoyment or just my autonomy is what matters the most, then that's going to inform the kinds of things that you do and the kind of person that you are. And that's why, like I say, like when it comes to secularism, making laws, you can make all the laws you want, But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with a society full of people who just either follow laws when it's convenient or break laws when it's convenient. And that's why I'm also opposed to the idea of a theocratic state, because the more you make laws without actual spiritual reform, without people actually being born again, you run the risk of having a society of people who are very hypocritical and very Pharisaic in how they understand things. So how they treat other people who are not as religious or righteous as they are, they tend to isolate them. And I don't want a society like that, because when I read the Bible, that Christ was getting into these disputes with the Pharisees who were trying to build a society like that, where they would fasten all these laws on people, but they wouldn't even help them keep them. So the danger with secularism is that it tries to do the same thing, but it's trying to do it with secular laws, where it's saying like, this is the kind of society that we want, where autonomy is prioritized. So let's make abortion legal, and let's actually call it women's health care. And the danger with that is that at the same time, you'll say, well, I wish I lived in a world where abortion didn't happen. I wish I didn't live in a, but also you're endorsing it in the same breath. And that kind of disconnect just isn't consistent enough for a kind of world that I want to live in, or that anyone wants to live in. Like, you should desire first and foremost your own personal reform, your own that you're actually living as a good and decent human being, and then that way you can influence the community around you, and hopefully that spreads out to the society and to the country, so that you become the kind of country that's like kind of a light to other people. It's not mainly like you're just trying to do things so that other people can think that, oh, you guys have the best laws, I want to come live there, when there's no actual deeper love for people. Like, you're not a philanthropist at all. You're just simply someone who's doing things because you want to enjoy life better before you die.
Yeah, I don't. One of the things that I don't understand uh, with you and Dale, maybe you can both respond to this, is where your line is. So in my hypothetical, and I only say it's hypothetical because I don't know what you believe, but my hypothetical is that smoking is a sin. So you can say whether you actually believe that or not. But what Dale said, and I think you, Mac, is that you wouldn't declare that illegal if you had the power to do it. This is one place where you would negotiate, but you say abortion is sin, and I'm going to use the power here uh, to do that. What is the line for you where you would use the uh, hegemonic power to make a decree, and when you would still say a thing is wrong, but you would go with negotiation? Uh, I don't know where the line is.
Yeah, well, it's for me, it comes down to you've got to do that cost benefit assessment, right? Because this is an occasion when you have conflicting moral principles at play and stuff like that, right? So
Right, but that's what I was saying. You sound like me. I'm trying to.
this is the way God operates too, right? Like for example, God had to do a cost benefit analysis in the Old Testament and say, all right, fine, I'm going to allow you guys to get divorced in the Old Testament, even though technically speaking, it's not right. It's not the
He never told him it wasn't right.
yes,
So I disagree with the framing. No, he didn't.
yeah,
Uh,
you said that Adam and Eve from the beginning is the template.
he never told the people back when they were getting a divorce that it was wrong. Jesus said that after the fact doesn't count.
Wait, how
So
does it not count if we believe that the God of the Old Testament is the same as Jesus? We're
because
Christians after all.
The God of the Old Testament allowed them to have divorces, and he didn't say, I'm only doing this because of the hardness of your heart. I'd really rather you not get divorces. He never said, I'd really rather you not have multiple wives. I'd really rather you not have
Well,
concubines. He never
well,
I
said that.
guess you read
you're
Paul
wrong,
then on that.
because you'll
Yeah.
find it. Moses does tell them a couple of times, actually, but that's a different discussion. Because Moses is always saying, like, why did you let me be the one to lead these people out? They're so hard necked, stiff necked, and everything. And then God's like,
Looking forward to the passage where God tells his people that divorce is a sin.
well, you don't necessarily have to have like something spelled out like that.
Yes, you
And
do.
this comes out to no,
You
not no,
absolutely do because you have it
you don't.
spelled out that it's okay. Okay,
It
so you can't just say, ah, well, they knew it was wrong. No, if God is the kind of God who would just burn them where they stood, if they were doing something he considered wrong. And so I don't think it's
well,
consistent at all to say
it's a
they knew it was
concession, Mike.
wrong.
It's a concession based on the type of people they were and where they lived in time. And like I talked to you about this with divorce. I'm sorry, Dale, to piggyback on what you're
No,
saying
no.
about divorce and how like yeah, divorce is not the ideal standard for marriage. Obviously, we don't want people getting married and then get divorced the same day. But there are instances where it's necessary. And so what Jesus says there is that the people actually were asking him a very specific question about, oh, can I just divorce my wife for any reason? And Jesus tells them that the ideal that you should look to is what happens in the garden. And that's the framework that as Christians we go off of. We don't go off of like, oh, it says here don't eat shellfish. Therefore, if you eat shellfish, you're sinning. It doesn't say here not to smoke. If you're smoking, you're sinning. If it doesn't say here to not get drunk. If you get drunk, you're definitely sinning. But it's like it's not that robotic way of interpreting the scriptures.
Okay, but Jesus wasn't speaking to the people at the time who were getting divorces and also having multiple marriages. That cannot count because God made laws for divorce. Furthermore, when it comes to polygamy, he was actively involved in helping people get more wives. There's no way that you can make this theodicy about, well,
That's what
in the garden, it was one man
that's
and
what
one
Mormons
woman.
say. Yeah, I've heard Mormons say that a lot actually.
Okay,
But
I'm no
they
Mormon.
are as
I'm just the
wrong
guy
as we
reading the
are.
Bible in the garden. My foot. What God did
What?
was to David, you had, however many hundred wives, and if that had not been enough, I would have given you more. That's what we have, and so you cannot retroactively say, "Oh, God was against polygamy" or something like that. He was involved in helping people get polygamy. The whole issue, the whole children of Israel came about by a man having sex with two women to distribute the tribes, and God would actively allow one wife to get pregnant, and then close her womb, and then another wife to get pregnant. That's how he wanted it. So you can't retroactively go back and say, well, in the garden
Well,
originally,
Yeah,
God
I don't
really
need
didn't
to
want it.
Paul
I don't need to
Copan.
retroactively do that because the scripture, the author himself presents polygamy as a negative.
Well, you're saying that Jesus is the author, and
He talks about how
I'm saying it's
well,
retconning.
that's one answer. You're saying it's retroactive, but there's also an instance where you have the author saying, okay, Cain did something that wasn't like he went and took two wives, which was like kind of like a departure. And the author of Genesis does this throughout the entire narrative where he shows that people were doing things contrary to what was going on in the Garden of Eden. And so again, if you want to read the Bible in a specific way that makes you right and
No,
just
I'm not
affirms
reading a
your
specific way. I'm just reading it. Okay.
so am I.
At no point did Abraham think even for a moment that having sex with Hagar was wrong.
He didn't think that.
Nope. At no point.
Well, let's move on from that. Read Paul Copan and you'll see, right? In his book, Is God a Moral Monster? He covers this, but forget about this. Here's an example that you'll take. The kosher laws, right? So these are not inherent. There's nothing sinful about eating non-kosher food, but it became a sin for the Israelites because it was a commandment from God. At that point, if they didn't eat it, you would agree that was a sin, right? If an Israelite disobeyed a direct command from God and ate kosher food and said, yes, I'm going to eat shellfish, that was a sin. So let's go with that example.
Right. But also, I don't believe in sin. But yes, that's what I would put in the category of an ideological wrong and not a real wrong.
There's no difference. If somebody
There's
believes
no difference if you're an ideologue in a particular system, but there is to me. You can tell me that it's a sin if I wear a red shirt on Tuesday because that's what your community believes. I don't give a shit. I haven't done anything wrong. It's an
You asked,
ideological wrong.
okay, you asked a question, and we're just getting totally
Yeah.
sidetracked. Do you recognize that why I said that is because there are times when God Himself compromised and um, condescended to human culture and stuff like that, and took that into considerations, even into His own commandments for the Israelites, right? The kosher laws, God doesn't care about that, but it was for a specified purpose to help bring about salvation history, and so God made those laws for that purpose at that
Right.
time.
I just can't ride with you on there's some good reason that God made kosher laws. But I do know from the stories that anyone who didn't keep kosher would have been cast out of the community. And so um, God wasn't sitting around saying, well, they just like shellfish. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to. No, he made it a law not to do. He didn't make it a law not to have more than one wife. He didn't make it a law not to have a concubine. And he didn't make it a law not to own slaves. He didn't make it a law not to divorce. And so it's absolutely retconning on Jesus' part to say, well, in the garden, it wasn't like this. Well, guess what, Jesus? In the garden, it wasn't like a lot of things because you had two people. So you were
You're calling it a
giving
retcon, but it's
you're giving a midrash
Do you
on an
remember what you
idea.
originally asked me? Because like it's totally
No.
relevant, everything you're saying, right? Like so like I brought that up to just give you asked us on what basis am I okay with allowing
Oh, thank you.
sex
Yeah. No,
like drawing the line.
I completely forgotten. So
the
yeah, that's what I asked. And so go ahead and finish explaining that to me. On what basis do you say we negotiate this but not that?
Yeah, so the point was about the divorce or whatever is that there are times when God it's biblically appropriate to allow a society to engage in sins, right? To give them their autonomy and freely choose to do the lesser than morally ideal standard, right? So that was the point that I was going to there. Now, as to where exactly the line is, that's why you have to do this individual cost benefit analysis. So I can tell you with abortion, the reason it's absolutely clear is basically on the one side, you have genocide, violation of the preservation of life to the extent of, the numbers. It's staggering. It's higher than the Holocaust from what I've heard from certain sources and stuff like that. All being killed. And goodness knows how many in the future innocent babies being killed versus on the other side,
Miscarriages dwarf the number, but go ahead.
right, but miscarriage is
God's abortions way outweigh all humans. So, but go ahead.
God's abortions. God, that's nature. Just in a sinful, fallen world, stuff happens. But yeah, absolutely. If you want me to pass any laws I can to minimize the number of miscarriages, we should do everything we possibly can to minimize those. But it's not a crime. The woman isn't doing it on purpose or murdering their baby. It's just a death, a natural death or something, right? So I don't know
Well,
what.
there's no such thing as a natural death when you have a God in the mix. An abortion, I'm sorry, a
Well,
miscarriage is specifically God saying, I will not let this baby come to term.
No, it isn't.
Really?
Yeah.
Does God not do that? Because again, I've read my Bible and he does there. When did he stop?
He doesn't do it. You're talking about like I'm not going to get into the Old Testament thing. That you're talking about the trial of bitterness and stuff like
Okay,
that.
not just that. No, I was actually thinking about once again when God would open one womb to have babies, or close another womb to have babies, or punish a woman in the case of
Well, a closed womb, there's no baby at the beginning, right?
uh,
If the womb's closed,
there's
there's never a baby in it. So
uh,
that's
yeah.
contraception. That's not abortion.
well, what it is God deciding who's born or not.
Okay.
So why is that a problem for you? And I guess that's
Well,
all.
I don't understand why abortion is a problem for you. Because
Wait, what?
if you're gonna talk about it, well, first of all, the Bible does not speak to
Abortion, there's a
abortion. It
life
doesn't
present. There's a
matter.
soul. There's an ensouled
Tell
human,
God that.
and we're
Tell God who ordered soldiers to kill babies that. You're not talking to a guy
Changing
who's
the
going to.
topic
No,
all
I'm
the
not.
time.
No, I'm not. You're using an example like abortion as if God gave a shit. about infant babies. He didn't. And today, once again, miscarriages aren't a thing that have to happen. You
But
say, oh, well, that's just nature. Look, miscarriages
Dave,
happen because God wants them to happen.
what has been my answer to that? Right. It's so in the same place. Okay. I was saying women cannot freely choose to kill their babies, kind of thing, right? But okay, but doesn't God kill babies or command babies? Let's just forget about, let's just pretend that's the case for hypothetically. If that's the case, what has been the cost benefit? There's a key difference in the cost benefit analysis, as I've explained it, why it's defensible and morally justified for God to command killing of baby, even babies, right? And stuff like that. In
I
that,
think it's morally justified to have abortions.
okay, no, but
Why? What?
but I don't. And the
Right. So we have to negotiate. But you would not negotiate. You would just pass down an ideological law.
no,
So
well,
No.
no, I
you would.
wouldn't.
You would say it would be illegal the day that you had the power to do it.
Right.
So
Well, it's like,
But
well,
yeah,
I'm sorry, Dale. I just want to jump in because like this topic of like I heard you a few hours ago say if you could change, like if you could stop all abortions, you would. But at the same time, you're saying, oh, it's a necessary thing for society, therefore it's moral. So I
I
can't
said that.
mess with that sort of. Not you, Dale, but
Oh,
David said
okay.
that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he
yeah,
said that if he could make sure that no abortion needs to happen, then he would. At the same time, it's like, oh, I think it's morally acceptable. So you can't have it that something is morally
I
acceptable.
didn't say that. You're slightly misquoting what I said to have a
Like,
massive misunderstanding of what I'm saying. I said I long for a society where abortions are not needed.
but they're
I think
needed.
I think every abortion is a failure of society, but it is like a failure of society with prisons and executions. Uh, they're needed, they're lamentable, they are failings, and I want to see a society where no woman need ever choose an abortion. We
But
don't have
they're
that. We don't live
natural,
in that. We
right?
don't live in that society.
Okay, so in the issue of miscarriages and abortions, you have miscarriages being natural. So to you, someone having a miscarriage
Nothing is
is
natural when you have a God. I'm
well, no,
sorry.
no. I'm going off of the again. I'm always going off of that. You're right that what you believe is true. So if people have miscarriages, then that's just nature doing its thing, right? So there's no moral failure there, all right? There's no sin. Remember, you said there's no such thing as sin. There's no such thing as God who rules or is in charge of
Right, but
anything.
I thought we were
So
carrying out. I
so
thought that we were comparing ideologies,
yeah,
though,
we
because
we are.
what you
So
wanted, what you were
I'm
trying to answer is
comparing.
why you would pull the trigger on one and not the other. And
Right.
Dale was explaining it from the perspective of it's a moral principle and somehow against the nature of God. And I was simply pointing out that is not against the nature of God in a Bible that I've read. So I don't
But Dale
understand
doesn't
actually.
believe that.
And
But
Dale,
you're telling Dale what he should believe.
no, I'm not
But
telling
he
you what he
doesn't
should.
believe. He
Okay,
doesn't believe that.
did I misunderstand, Dale? If you had the power today, right now, to end abortion, would you do it? To make it illegal, would you do it?
okay, so, yes, there are some exceptions to that, right? So, for
It
example,
doesn't, but
one
you would do
exception,
it, right? You would make it illegal.
yes, I would make that illegal. But here's the thing, though, like there are always exemptions and exceptions and stuff like that. So, why is it okay for God to command killing babies? Again, pretending that he did, just for the sake of argument, I'm saying yes, okay, he commanded exactly what you're thinking in his head, in your head and stuff like that. In that case, there's the cost, there's another moral principle involved, right? And for the sake of saving as many souls as possible, eternal life is more important than earthly life. And I say, yeah, the benefits are worth the cost of those babies' lives. That doesn't apply to women. Can the woman prove that, yeah, by killing her babies without God telling them, an omniscient God who actually knows the results and consequences, that, yeah, okay, it's better, more souls will be saved, less people will be damned to hell if I if we kill all of our babies in the womb? No, they don't know. For all they know, it's better. They have the next little Winston Churchill, the next little Albert
No,
Einstein.
but as a secularist, I don't care what you think about souls going to hell. So that doesn't
But you
move the
care
needle
because
for
you
me.
asked me what is the distinction I
Right.
make. So you have to
I,
ask
I,
that.
I understand that, but when I retort it to that I would also do the social calculus. It's like, well, you don't get a chance to do the social calculus. God can do it, and it's fine. And so, God killing babies, good. Me doing the social calculus on something like abortion, bad. And what I don't understand, and I still don't understand, is why you would pull the trigger on abortion as ruler of the emperor of the world, and not on some other things that God equally says is sin.
Because
Because that's not what. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no problem.
I don't care who answers it. I'm just trying to
No, I
understand
just
the
want
difference
Phil to
between
give his
I
answer.
rule on this one ex cathedra and I negotiate on that one.
Right, we're in a conflicting moral hierarchy situation here with conflicting principles. And in this case, the benefits of upholding the principle of life preservation in these cases, in this case, outweigh any of the benefits of allowing the babies to be murdered. Provable benefits on that front. In the case of the Bible, we have God telling us, an omniscient, morally perfect God telling us exactly that the consequences will outweigh the upholding the principle of life preservation. So that's why there's a difference. It's not hypocrisy on my front. We have God given information about the cost benefit saying, yep, it's better to kill in this case. Whereas just us on our own, a random woman, she's not omniscient. She doesn't
I,
have enough
I know you
resources.
believe that many Christians disagree with you about the whole cost benefit thing and God communicating stuff cost benefit. But I do want to get Mac in because I don't have his answer. So Mac, are there any things? Because believe it or not, I think you and I actually have had a lot of agreement on this on this issue.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, we agree because
the,
I see your
you wouldn't
perspective.
you wouldn't just rule with hegemonic power. I declare this illegal because righteousness.
No,
And
because even if you got people to follow whatever laws that you want people to follow, as far as my Christian beliefs go, uh, people aren't people aren't saved by being good citizens of their countries. Now, that would be something good for society, but ultimately, that's not the ultimate goal because you could either have a society full of lawless people, which no one wants. No one wants anarchy. And at the same time, no one wants to be surrounded by a bunch of hypocrites who say one thing, like politicians who say one thing and then behind closed doors they do another thing. And I feel like if someone enacts a system of government that favors rule keeping above uh, actual legitimate uh, moral transformation, then you get a system like that. So when it comes to like, oh, what if you had the power to make smoking illegal? Um, I wouldn't do it because it's one of those things that comes down to a personal choice. As a society, we know, thankfully, that it's bad, and most people don't smoke. But in terms of other laws like abortion, where it's kind of like flipped now, and you have people thinking, it's not real, like people believing wrong things, like saying it's not really a human being. Like that's obviously not true. Uh, and so something like that obviously needs to be put on the chopping block. And it like people have to, in a way, understand that the things that make society what it is like caring for the helpless among us, the people who cannot help themselves. And ultimately something like that. So just to answer your question real fast, I draw the line in terms of where the scope of the impact it would have either on an individual person or on society as a whole. So that's how laws are made. They're made with the interest of uh, protecting the most amount of people. And if someone decides for themselves, I'm still going to do this thing that is harmful for me, and I'm not going to do it. So it's different than alcohol, for example, because if someone enjoys alcohol uh, uh, responsibly, then that's different than someone who actively smokes tobacco and gives themselves lung cancer. So it's not as black and white as, okay, like I draw the line here, or this is 50% right, this place is 75% right. You have to do the cost benefit thing. And also, ultimately, the most important thing is obviously uh, spiritual transformation. But you don't agree with that. And this is what I keep saying over and over again, is that the difference between our worldviews is that Christianity goes all the way down to the essence of human nature, whereas yours only stops at a certain point. It says, okay, I can tell you to do things only up to a certain point. I can't go farther than that. But the fact that you choose to stop before you go into someone's motivations, someone's spirituality, the fact that you stop there means that you're always going to have a society that's completely different and radical compared to the one that Dale and I would want to live in, where people are in fact doing things for the right reason as opposed to doing the right thing for the wrong reason. I don't want to live in a society, but I do, right? But ultimately, I don't live in a society where people are just pretending to be my friend and they're not really my friend, or they're pretending to do good things because ultimately this is what's beneficial for them. And a good example for this, and then I'll stop talking, is when people are driving on the road and I'll see people run red lights when there's no camera to take a picture of them, or there's no police officer nearby. They'll just run a red light, and they'll do it because they can do it, and they're doing it because, hey, I gotta get to where I gotta get to. But in an ideal society, people would keep the law because it's the right thing to do. It's not that you're gonna run the red light so that uh because it's beneficial for you to do that at the time. You have to do the right thing because it is the right thing by itself. And there's a reason why the traffic light is there. It's to stop people from getting into T-bones, from hitting other people who are crossing. But the society we live in has, in a way, switched and prioritized other things. And that's the biggest difference I see between Christianity and secularism. Secularism says, oh, I only care about if people do the right thing that benefits me. I don't really care about the motivations. Whereas Christianity says the motives matter as well as the outcome. And that's always going to be the point of contention.
So there would be maybe a point of contention, not terribly important under my regime, and I will just say something that might maybe surprise some people.
I have my hand
shouldn't. Oh, well, man.
Because I wanted to clarify.
So let me just say this, because this is real quick. I would, Mac, if you had that hegemonic power, and you felt about abortion exactly the way you do now, and you're willing to negotiate, I would work with your administration. I would I would be on your council, because because at the end of the day, we want the same thing. I don't care why you want it, and you don't care what I want it, but we want to work toward the same goal. I would say where abortion is no longer necessary. You would say where people have changed their heart and they think abortion is wrong. But I think that with those attitudes, we could, in fact, come together and negotiate better solutions for our time than what we have right now. Because I don't think either one of us is satisfied with what we have now in terms of abortion. I would not, however, work with an ideologue who said, I declare abortion banned and I declare war on anyone who bans it. I just couldn't do it. I would have to take up arms, I guess, on the other side, and I don't want to take up arms against anybody. But it's the difference between being able to negotiate and the ability in the place where negotiation breaks down.
Okay, so you would actually, me and Mac are exactly the same, and you do in fact work with ideologues all the time, because we have an ideologue in our system right now, right? It's against the law to murder. You're not allowed. There's no toleration, no negotiation. You can't kill and murder another person, or you go to jail. It's
Murder,
as you said.
murder, killing is one of the most negotiated things we have in the books. Okay.
So okay, so on this front, right? So on this front, I think what Mac is saying is that Well, get the reason why is abortion, why is it okay for this rule with murder, right? Like even as a Christian, you wouldn't say, well, we should take down the books. We can't make it illegal to murder a human being. No, we're allowed to have that because what's the difference between that and abortion? We're still murdering. Me and Mac agree with that, but I think it's the cost benefit analysis. You're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, but you're saying that, yeah, but in the case of abortion, because it's this controversial topic. It's not settled that it's a human being and all this stuff that the costs of making that illegal would be so devastating that it's not the same as murdering me as an 18-year-old or murdering a 3-month-year-old baby that's already been born or something like that. That's not controversial and wouldn't have the negative consequences. That's why we can make this law, ideological law, wrong to kill, don't kill the 3-month baby. But with the other one,
Yeah.
am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that just due to how society is right now, like if you and I lived 60, 70 years ago, people would agree with us that, yeah, absolutely, it's murder. But now we live in a society where it's kind of been, the truth has been destroyed, like all these programs that come out, like the Handmaid's Tale way saying, okay, if you guys make abortion illegal, that means you're trying to control women's bodies. And I've been in debates where people say like, oh, you just hate women, you just want to control women, all these other things. So in a sense, there has to be more than just the legal aspect of things. And I personally don't think that the government is the best institution. Like their job as an institution that is founded by God is for them to enforce the law. And in a sense, something like abortion would have to be something that society, the same way that people said slavery is not something that's acceptable for us to do. That's something that the society itself has to like snap out of it and say, okay, wait, what are we doing here? The same way like all the rampant uh, sex trafficking and pornography, that's something we're going to have to self-moderate and say this is not the kind of society we want to be. But that can't happen in a secular society because people say like, it's all about my own personal autonomy. It's all about me doing what's right in my own eyes. So pretty much my view is like, okay, making something illegal doesn't solve the underlying problem. What you actually need is reform of people's understandings and mindset of why things happen in the world. And that is what's far more important than necessarily like I don't know if you've heard of about this movement that's kind of taking off right now with I think it's called, I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Doug Wilson or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. His whole thing where he's doing it in his state in Idaho, where he's trying to like establish a mini Christian state. And like ultimately, like I can understand why he's trying to do that, but I don't think that that's the most efficient way. I want abortion to be illegal. Like I would do it if I could do it right now. Uh, but the situation that we're in as a society makes it so difficult to make it illegal and then not have other people say, okay, you guys are just oppressing people. I want it to be that people see, okay, it should be legal because it's actually wrong, not because like we're trying to seize their autonomy or something like that.
Yeah, I
And in the
totally.
meantime, there are things as a secularist that I would suggest uh, to reduce the number of abortions because I would address the need portion of it. It doesn't matter whether you agree with me on the need portion, but if what you care about is reducing the number of abortions, um, I, there are some agreements that could be come to that we could come to. But if you're simply going to stand on the grounds of um, everyone who does an abortion is a murder and they have the death penalty, we're not gonna. There's no work to be done at that point. It's just a civil war.
Right. And that's the situation, at
But
least
it's not.
personally speaking, is that I don't want a situation like that.
Okay, so I had a bunch of things to say. So I'm totally against Christian nationalism. That has nothing to do. If I was a non-Christian, I would still have this law about against abortion. It nothing to do with imposing Christian ideals and stuff like that. Although there is some overlap. Obviously, Christians would agree that it's a human being in the womb, and but that's fundamentally the basis and stuff like that. Um, so I totally agree with you on that. And let me say further, if the cost benefit really was, so this is where I think we disagree. If the cost benefit was, oh, we would have civil war and billions of people would die, or there would be, if you banned abortion, there would be nuclear war. I would not ban abortion under those consequences. So let me say that. But where I disagree is I don't agree that oh, if you ban abortion, it's civil war. Some states have already banned abortion, and
Yeah.
hardly no civil war. No one's died really. We've
But
had
statistically, we have more abortions today than we did before. And so the reason there's no civil war is because abortions are still available.
Yeah,
no,
because in general, people have been taught in the past few generations, people have been taught that it's okay to have an abortion because ultimately you're not really killing a human being. You're just getting rid of like cells in your body, which is obviously not true. And that's the problem, right? The people who have influence, who have the most power, are the ones who kind of shape the agenda and they make it so that it's harder for
it,
um so like something like abortion is definitely up on the top of the list. And then you have something like, for example, like I'm positive about this. I feel like 200 years from now, people will be like, those people in the 21st century had like, they were like pretending to be against human trafficking, but yet the online porn industry is $1 billion industry. So something like that is like the people who have the most influence, the most money are the ones who are able to like shape how the culture goes. And so there has to be like some kind of restructuring in how people are influenced to think about things. And that's what matters the most. And I don't think secularism, whatever it is, however individualistic it is, has the necessary tools to make something like human trafficking, where people are trafficked to go and be part of like porn scenes in Hollywood. I don't think it has the tools to stop something like that. And that's the issue.
So let me be clear. I'm a secularist, and I do believe in the value of secularism. But I think maybe something I am even more than secularist is a pluralist. The greatest thing about America, at least in its ideals, to the extent that it was ever true, represented by Staten Island, is the fact that we were a melting pot and that we welcomed diversity. I'm a huge proponent of diversity, but diversity has problems. There are issues with diversity, and it makes life very hard for, again, ideologues. And it doesn't have to be religious ideologues, just ideologues, because there's very little variance of opinion allowed in dogmatic ideology. And so it stands against the idea of pluralism. Uh, this is why I talk about negotiation so much and good conversation, because we do not have emperors. We do not have kings. We do not have hegemons. Um, and we are different people from all over the world, all cultures mixed together in a mess of a country right now. And I think if I'm going to get political, and I hope this doesn't poison the well at all, I think that the Democrats are just a bigger coalition of diverse groups that uh, are good for pluralism. And I think that republicanism, which is itself almost a religion, is an anti-pluralistic um, endeavor. And so I I oppose uh, theocracy, not just because I think that theocracy is bad, but because theocracy is one of the best uh, standards examples that you can give for anti-pluralism. It is ideal. It is ideology that restricts pluralism, and so that's why if I had the political power, I know there are things that I say I would do here, and on a show like this because I have no power, so it's easy to say it. But my number one priority would be figuring out ways to make the experiment of a pluralistic society work. Because I don't know that there's any other country in the world that has tried pluralism to the degree uh, that we have. I kind of think these days it's a failed experiment.
well,
I think we
yeah,
failed at pluralism, and
more so.
that saddens me. But that's what I care about, which is why I don't mind spending several hours of my life talking to chuckleheads like you, because it matters. We,
Is that aimed
on
at me?
our little level, have to negotiate because we have differences of opinion and we have to find ways to carve out common ground to live the kind of life that we want to in this world.
Can I speak now as a chucklehead or?
Well, I mean, you were invited on the show as a chucklehead. I mean, if I had a lower third,
Okay, so yeah, look, I agree to it. Look, the state's role. I'm answering this question as a politician, not a Christian whose goal is to save souls. That's not the government's job. That's not what God has set it up. So I agree with classical principle of tolerance, what you call pluralism. And I think Republicans are doing an amazing job on that front. They allow, and conservatives, they allow the melting pot model in the sense that there's a shared sense of civic values, right? But outside of that, it can be what Canada's immigration system is, the salad bowl model, right? So you can be a Hindu, you can be a Buddhist. I tolerate your existence, your rights to worship, but at the end of the day, we have this similar core of civic value. Now, the problem with immigration today, under the Democrats' understanding is it seems to be all salad bowl, no melting pot at all. We don't even have this common core of values that we're trying to, such as freedom of religion. That's no longer a value. A lot of people in this country don't respect religion or freedom of speech or, freedom of conscience and stuff like that. They want to impose their will. We want to discriminate actively against Christians or against these people that we see as quote unquote oppressors. And that's where the failure has been. If we go back to the way it was, where it's this combination of a melting pot for the core values and then the salad bowl, the Canadian immigration model for everything else, where we classically tolerate other people, that's what works. That's the plurality I would agree for. But there are certain things where that core is, right? I'm sorry, we're not going to tolerate a plurality of opinions on is it okay to kill a 3-month-old baby? No, these are the laws. That's wrong. And we're enforcing that. And if you violate it, you're going to jail. We're not going, well, you disagree. Cool. Let's be a pluralistic society. You can kill your 3-year-old. I won't. That's not for me. There
Yeah.
has to be that core value.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening in Europe right now, like places where like they're becoming pluralistic, but at the same time the core values have kind of eroded so badly that people like if someone comes in from a different part of the world and they have different they have different moralities, and you're like you don't want to impose on their morality, so you just let them do whatever they want because you don't want to be seen as intolerant. And that's just kind of like that's messed up. You shouldn't have to put up with that sort of thinking where it's like, okay, in my country I'm allowed to have multiple wives, so why can't I do that here? And you're like, oh, I don't want to be intolerant to that, you know? Um, and so like the challenge again,
actually, I don't
like
understand why a person couldn't have multiple wives here, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah, but the secularist is coming at it from a different point of view where it's like for them it's what matters is you have a comfortable life for you first, and then if you can get it for other people, then that's even better.
That's
Whereas,
not secularism. That's just humans being
well,
human.
I just want to say, David, you don't understand what's wrong with polygamy yet, but just tell your wife and then you'll see what the problem is. So,
I wouldn't tell her. I
oh, then
would,
problems.
oh,
that's not really something you can keep secret. But
Sorry,
yeah,
I
like
interrupted you.
like a secularist would be like, I just want to make society better for myself, and as long as that person over there is not bothering me, then I should be fine. Whereas a Christian goes beyond that, in the sense of like, it would be nice. So this is kind of like where it gets kind of touchy-feely because um, uh, a secularist says you don't have a right to tell me what. Remember this from 20 years ago. You don't have a right to tell me what happens in my bedroom. Okay, cool. Um, but then there's the understanding that what happens in your bedroom will eventually find its way out into society. So it's not like you're trying to control someone's behavior. It's just that you're looking at it from a different. You both have different lenses in which you view the world. And at
So
the end of the day, you have to find a way to live together peaceably. And this is not merely like a religionist thing, because secular people do this as well. They do try and force their ideologies on religious people. So and the way I understand it is that secularism doesn't really have the guardrails, for example, to say, okay, you can't really go past that point outside of that person's specific set of ethics. So if enough secular people felt that I can go beyond and impose my morality, then there's no limit, that there's no place that can stop. Whereas at least as far as Christianity is concerned, there's a limit between okay, shaking the dust off your feet and going to the next town versus being able to dialogue with someone with hopes that you can convince them, or rather, even better, that they would become saved, and that they would have their entire life transformed, and that they would see that it's not merely what happens on the surface level, but rather what goes on in someone's heart that matters.
Okay, I'm going to let that be the last word. I would invite the two of you back for the last show. I can tell you for several weeks now, I thought about the first show. I thought about the slavery show, a couple of things in advance of this series. God's morality was always going to come up somewhere near the slavery show, so that's coming next week. But the last show was another one of the shows that I thought about, which was very important in Morality Week, and it's one that doesn't get discussed, I think, in a focused way. So I invite you to come back for that one, because that show is going to be uh, the morality of politics and of nations and governments, because I want to talk about some of these issues there, talk about the morality that matters to us as boots on the ground individuals that are going concerns right now. Any other kind of morality just is an exercise in philosophy, but um, we are political beings, whether we know it or not. We're civic social beings, and government is simply how societies express social. Um, there's a reason why there are no anarchical societies, because it's diametrically opposed to societies. It will simply eat itself up. So at the end of the day, our highest moralities are in fact expressed in our uh, political, governmental, civic reality of the way we live and think every day. So I want to come back and talk about some of this stuff, including stuff at a level that we haven't discussed yet. But I thank you both for being here, just so that this can be said, so that everyone can hear it. You're welcome on the show anytime. Uh, a host of Skeptics and Seekers is a forever host. You can just come back. It doesn't matter. Seats warm. This extends to David Russell. Heck, if Titus wanted to come back, and he was never actually a host, but I really enjoyed talking to him, he can do it. So I appreciate it. I think, and I may be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. Of between the three of us, which stands to be a powder keg, I think this may be the most civil show that we have ever had. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I told you the explosion. It's Darren and Mac that have the explosions because Darren.
Okay,
No,
I'll
wait.
remember that.
You,
I'm
you
inviting them on the
wait,
last show then.
Dale, you've had more explosions with him than I ever had. I've only maybe had like two at
Yeah, but
most.
that's
And
because
that's
you weren't doing the
because
show
I'm
long
in the
enough.
comments here.
You would have caught up.
What?
so who's the common denominator? I don't mean to be
I wasn't insulting you. I was just making a joke.
not yeah, I know,
Like,
I know. I'm also
Look,
kidding. But like
I
in a sense, I don't have explosive conversations if if there's like an agreed upon, you know.
I don't mind the heat. I mind heat where there's no benefit. Uh, but I love passion. Passion sells. People listen because of passion. But in this case, I think I think there was a good, I would say, honest exploration. I think I mentioned to Dale when we were talking about doing this show, I actually don't have a position that I would fight to the wall. I don't know if my position is good or not. I needed to be tried. Um, it may have been garbage. I don't think it is garbage, but you bring it to a place like this to see, to discuss, to explore, and it's kind of a safe place for figuring out what you believe in parts. And so I felt like it was a safe place for everybody the entire time. I would mention Brian Beddor, but honestly, no one expects some kind of explosive argument with Brian. So that's that was never going to happen. But of the three of us, I am sure people would have it bet on, an assassination attempt by now. And it simply was never going to happen. I felt the mutual respect the entire time. There was never a time when I felt like things got heated or out of control. And I appreciate being able to have that kind of discussion and simply match intellect and not the ability to shout into microphones.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, like I said, this is
Yeah.
the thing about us four, because Brian was here or whatever. Yeah, like we were actually listening to each other and stuff like that. And I don't think we interrupted that much. It was like a rare occasion or something, but like we were trying to actually listen and then engage point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. So that's where it works, hopefully. And that's where the discussion, the deliberation is actually edifying.
Yeah, and since I'm saying nice things to people with terrible ideas, um, Phil Bear, you're welcome on the show anytime. He knows we disagree, but I like Phil. I liked Phil since the first time I was on a show with him, which is the only time I was on a show with him. And the thing I like about Phil uh, is he's very unassuming. Never mind the chiseled face and profile. Okay, that's just not fair. Uh, I like the fact that he just says what he thinks. He does. He's not when he engages in a debate or discussion. There are no tactics. He has no tactics. He has no strategy. He's just a person saying what he thinks about stuff. That's the thing that I liked about Dale. Uh, when I was thinking about who to do this show with, that stood out. And even Dale would probably acknowledge in private, pretty much every Christian on the board was engaged in protecting their idea or winning or something like that. And Dale just came in like a wrecking ball and just said stuff. Maybe he's grown up. Maybe he's more maybe he's more careful these days. But I didn't like Dale for his carefulness. I liked him for the fact that you could have an honest discussion and you don't have to spend an hour getting to what he actually believes because he's trying to be guarded. I feel that way about Phil. He doesn't have any of that in him. He's just a person who is smart, well-read, well-studied, thoughtful, and passionate about what he believes. But that's the kind of person I'm attracted to, and I would love to have more conversation with Phil. So throw him into the tank of people who are more than welcome on the show at any time.
Yeah, he was telling Mac yesterday. He said he would love. Now I felt a little insulted by this, but he said the best person he could ever partner with was Mac. I was like, hey, what happened to me? But anyways, he's like against a couple of atheists on I think like natural determinism and stuff like that. So like yeah, he was actually asking about debating like a tag team, couple of atheists versus things. So like maybe you and Andrew or something, you guys can set it up against.
Look, the last show, I planned for it to be a panel show. It is going to be very emotional because you're mixing politics and religion.
Yeah.
morality, ethics. It's going to be worthy of a finale. Um,
Mhm.
but if you guys can bring the spirit that you brought today, um, I'm looking for a hell of a show on that last show. So you can be thinking about that, and I hope to see you there. In the meantime, skeptics and seekers at squarespace.com. Log in to discuss waste and email skepticsseekers at gmail.com. And Dale, Real Seekers, I know we've got that show that we were talking about. I know that there was a show that I missed talking about before that. What were some of your latest shows?
Okay, so yeah, just yesterday I had Mac Attack versus Phil Bear debating the issue of Calvinism versus Molinism. And specifically, the topic was, is exhaustive divine determinism biblical or not, kind of thing.
And
So,
let the record show, I really wanted to be in that show when Dale told me about it. I begged, I debased myself. I still cannot be in this show. Dale is a mean man. But I very much wanted to be
well, yeah,
uh,
Phil was going to
in that.
debate if Mac said no to doing it, then Phil was going to debate you on the issue of like natural determinism. But Mac, because Mac said yes, all right.
Here's the thing. I don't actually mind debating some of the theological issues too. I've got a Christian hat. It's just shaped like a crown of thorns, which is how it feels when I put it on. But the fact is, I think that both Christians in the argument were wrong theologically. And so I would have been happy
So
to,
what's the right
to
answer?
argue the theology. Now, yeah, I wanted to talk about that in the beginning, but I was shooed away from it too late now. So come back sometime and we could do a supplemental on that idea of Molinism versus divine determinism. It's been a good show so far. I'm not even halfway done listening to it, but I'm enjoying it. It is a show that I wanted to be in, and I would not have thrown a wrench in things by saying, "Ah, God, idea stupid." I would have debated it strictly on theological terms.
Oh, okay, fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, I did think it was good to. I wanted originally the show idea was to have Mac on because Mac asked to come on my show. He's never been on a Real Seekers show and stuff like that before, so I was glad to have like Mac versus Phil because it was on that topic. We were supposed to do it originally with Warren, I think, right? Warren McGrew, who's an open theist. But that didn't work out. So to be able to do this with Phil, who's actually a Molinist, who believes what I believe, that's the perfect debate. Calvinism versus my own belief. How does Molinism stack up to the arguments for and against? So yeah, it all worked out. And I'll probably have that posted maybe by tomorrow or something, tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
yeah.
No,
Hey, you guys, welcome anytime. So in the meantime, I will see you in the comments. Well, no,
All right, thanks for having me,
until
David.
then, yeah, something like that. We're out. Uh,
yeah.
we're out.